on your porch with your sunglasses. I was like, yes.
Well, those glasses, they change color.
Yeah.
So
You had the
I
Joe
didn't try to
Biden
look
thing
cool
going.
at all.
Oh, it was cool. When you're looking at, say, Chris right now, it's like that. I do see that it's 3:31, and I am just look at Chris.
Don't milk it, Chris. I can demote you.
This is the time when people always text me and they're like, "We can hear you," which is fine. I mean, it's just fine.
Collegial banter.
Yep. I'm just demoting people and waiting until we get a couple more folks here.
Just, you want to be sure to not mute the two.
Yeah, I'm not muting anybody. I'm just demoting like Mike Solomon to attendee, just to limit the amount of people that are in the presenter area. Just helps me keep an eye on my colleagues and Sherry. All right. Well, I think we're gonna get started here. I think we've got a pretty good group of folks. And I'm just trying to see if trying to find out council members in the stack here. Oh, there's Miss Jalali. Yang. All right, and I was sharing again that you can pin people. You can use the people participants side or just on their screen to pin up council members or other people that you want to see more of. Right now, like Di definitely is pretty well. All right. Well, we are going to get started. I'm to the control room. We're going to rock and roll here, and I will call the St. Paul City Council to order. Roll call.
Prince.
I'm here. I don't know if you call me or not.
Okay. Tao, that was you next. Tolbert. I think you're still muted.
Here.
Okay.
Here.
Yang.
Here.
Jalali.
Here.
Naker.
Here.
Council President Brenmon.
Here.
And one last call for Councilmember Prince. All right. 6 present, 1 absent, being Councilmember Prince.
All right. Please stand and join Mr. Tolbert in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for everyone. For all.
Thank you.
Consent agenda items 3 through 17 are before you for your approval.
Is there anything on consent that should be taken separately today? All right. Looks like there's nothing. And I will take this opportunity for folks who are watching And just to my colleagues, anything that's on consent is always ripe for discussion. Sometimes it's just hard to know if there will be discussion. So things like default to consent, but they can always be taken off. They're not there for any other reason than just efficiency. So I see there is no call for anything to come off the consent agenda today. So Ms. Yang would move approval. Roll call.
Prince, she arrived.
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Baker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted.
Ms. Naker moves suspension of the rules. Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang, Councilmember Yang, I didn't hear you. Looks like her screen may have frozen.
Yep, I see that.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
And Councilmember Yang, are you back?
Yeah. Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed. The rules are suspended. And we have an update from the staff, from the administration.
All right, and we did move suspension of the rules to get an update from Deputy Mayor Tincher and I believe Director Ricardo Cervantes. I'm just following the homeless encampment, unsheltered homeless encampment around I-35 and Kellogg Boulevard and the work that happened there last week. We did have information prior to that and just thought it would be meaningful to have a follow-up with an update on the work that happened and just a general overview. I know that we've been getting some emails and this may help answer those questions. So I look to Deputy Mayor Tincher and Mr. Cervantes and it looks like Deputy Chief Murphy as well for an update. So welcome and thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you, Council President. Council members, thank you for having us. I have about 7 slides we can go through pretty quickly because I know there's probably a lot of questions and discussion that you all would like to have with us. So I'll jump right in. I'm not going to touch on things that it's a continuation of the information that we provided when County Manager Ryan O'Connor joined for an organizational meeting on August 19th. So we had a lot of background information in that presentation. On September 10th, we closed the I-35E encampment. The main risk factor there, as you all know, the traffic on Kellogg Boulevard and then coming off of the 35E ramp, it's just a really challenging geographic space for us to have a lot of individuals who are settling there. And so we just determined that well before COVID, that was not a location that we felt was safe for that type of activity, and we needed to make sure that we moved individuals to safer spaces. The numbers there in March were around 5/10, and then by late August, we had more than 80 individuals who were sheltering there. In advance of the closure on September 10th, the city worked with outreach staff and our partner organizations, and many city staff members worked directly with encampment occupants to identify options for every single individual who was sheltering there so that they could go indoors if they so chose. On the day of the clearing, we were down to about 30 to 35 individuals. If we go to the next slide, some of the strategies that we used were things that we had done in the past. We also combined some new techniques, some things that were successful that we did. We did make sure that we were notifying occupants early and often about the date and when the area would be cleared. We visited many times before September 11th. We were asking folks what their needs were, what options might be available to them, and we were coordinating that with all of our partners, our nonprofit partners, and outreach staff. We also determined in advance the number of individuals that were there. So how many spaces were we going to need indoors? And we had confirmation every day through Ramsey County what shelter and housing options were available. And you can see in that chart, which also gives some capacity information from 2019 going into 2020. And this is a practice that we've implemented with Ramsey County moving forward so that we're coordinating on available shelter space on a day-to-day basis. If you go to the next slide, a few of the things that we figured out through this process, all of our nonprofit and public sector partners were coordinating our resources. So that's the Met Transit homeless outreach team, Ramsey County, all of our nonprofit partners. I can't say enough about all of our partners, Catholic Charities, the staff at Safe Space, many people in multiple departments at the city. We all came together and we were coordinating around transportation needs, storage of belongings, and day space options. And we have a lot of examples of learning that we had. One of my examples in this space, multiple days before the 10th, when I had visited the camp, there were a number of women who in the afternoon, when I talked with them, they were ready to go indoors. They were ready to take advantage of an opportunity, but Safe Space didn't open until 10 o'clock. And so by the time I came back at 9 p.m., circumstances had changed and they had decided, maybe I'll wait until tomorrow to go. And so leading up to the 10th, what we figured out, and I'm really grateful to Catholic Charities. They partnered with us and made some day space available so that in the afternoon, when individuals were ready to take advantage of the opportunity, we could get them indoors. And then our emergency management team, they provided transportation. So we had a city van that was taking individuals from that space at Catholic Charities over to Safe Space and doing a lot of that work to transport belongings. Our emergency management staff also, there were a number of individuals that they helped them pack up their belongings. They took them on trips over to storage facilities and helped them get space to keep their belongings so that they could take advantage of indoor opportunities. If we go to the next slide, the next steps for this site, we have requested, we've been told that the state through MnDOT that there will be assistance to ensure that this site is patrolled and that we make sure that it does not become reoccupied. Again, because we are very concerned about the safety of this location due to the traffic. The biggest challenge that we had, and I think there's some strategies for moving forward on how we can deal with some of this, but there were volunteers that were in the space. We know that they were transporting individuals to various locations and they weren't coordinating with us. So a number of the problems that creates is, first and foremost, we're not able to track where individuals are, and their caseworkers need to know where they are so that they can continue that follow-up and make sure that if housing options or other things become available, they know how to find those individuals and get them there. In particular, the Phelan location, Emergency Management Director Shute and I went to that location on Sunday. We were able to talk to a number of the individuals that were there. So I can confirm that the individuals in that location were previously at the I-35E location. We had been encouraging folks who didn't want to go indoors yet. We had encouraged them to go to Lower Landing because that spot's within walking distance to Safe Space. And it would give them an opportunity to go into Safe Space overnight, particularly with the weather getting colder overnight. That's a far better option than being that far away from that service. And what Director Shute and I found when we talked to folks that were at 35 or had been taken to Phelan, Now they are far from the services that they have. There were folks who they had caseworker meetings that were lined up. They have medical appointments that are in downtown, and they don't have transportation that's reliable. And the other challenge with that location is it was not a location that we had already established as a place that we had porta potties, hand washing, things like that. So we're going to work on that, but I think that that's a challenge that we have in this space, and we just need to make sure that all of the supports and the work that is happening in this space, that it's coordinated and it is putting at the center the individuals that we're trying to help. The next slide is just an update on the data that we track. We talked about this on August 19th. The latest update on this is we do feel like we are turning that curve and we're moving these numbers in the right direction. So as of yesterday, our numbers were at 243 tents across the city and 297 people sheltering outdoors, and our counts again are the number of individuals who are sheltering outdoors in tents, under bridges, and in caves in St. Paul. And so as of the week before, those numbers were at 362, and we feel like they're going in the right direction. We have a whole lot of work left to do. And so that leads to the next slide, just a brief update on Action Plan 1, which we are partnering with Ramsey County on. That's the long-term plan, those longer-term sustainable options that we need to bring more shelter, more housing supports, more affordable housing options. We need to make those available. Our primary strategy is funding new spaces, so more real estate. And the really hard work in this space, I think, is figuring out how we provide the 24/7 wraparound services and the day space operational services that go along with those real estate options that we're finding. So that work continues to move forward as quickly as it possibly can. And we've got really good partners in Ramsey County that are helping move that along. The last slide is just an update on Action Plan 2, was our immediate response plans to the now 297 individuals. Our primary strategy is mobilizing and coordinating all the resources. We know that that's going to be the best way to help us tackle and get solutions for 297 individuals. The secondary strategy in that is partnering or is really thinking about what are those immediate needs that individuals have. So it's what are we doing in the area of providing food? What are we doing in the area of sanitation, safety and security? And then with all of those sites, we'll continue a site-by-site approach because each of these locations have unique challenges and unique needs of those individuals. And so that's the work that we're continuing to do. And
Deputy Mayor, I do want to just say that for some reason, I'm not sure if the shared screen is sharing for other folks. I'm not seeing it. I'm looking at my colleagues. Are you guys seeing the shared screen as the main? Okay. Yeah. I'm hearing that it's not presenting that way online, but if you folks are seeing it, then that's good. Sorry to interrupt you.
That was perfect timing. I'm all done. Our last slide is questions and conversation.
See, I couldn't see that. So great. Great. All right. Well, I see Ms. Prince has her hand up, so let's start there.
Deputy Mayor Tincher, I cannot thank you enough for your diligence and 24/7 availability on this issue. I never expected that when I was in touch with you this weekend about a call that I received from a friend about Lake Phelan, that you and Rick would be up there yet that day and working on resolving that issue. So I need to tell you that this is an extraordinary effort, and we are really grateful to you for it. My one question is, we are getting reports of tents popping up in, I I've gotten one about in a different location in Mounds Park than we have seen them before. We have some tents there were tents in the Upper Sweet Hollow Park, which is a residential neighborhood. It's not an ideal location. So I'm just wondering if you could give us some direction when we get those calls. Do we send them to 266-8989 or Ricardo? I would just appreciate some guidance on what we do about encampments springing up in our public parks.
Ricardo, I'll let you give specific directions, and then Council President Renmo and Council President or Council Member Prince, thank you for the words. I just have to say I couldn't be more proud of the city staff that we have and the number of individuals who, you know, in this city, among many departments, who have just come to this space and with their whole hearts and the kindness and the just without question, they just showed up and they said, what do I need to do? How do I be helpful? And so, you know, I would want to get my list because I wouldn't want to leave anyone out. But we have really incredible folks at the City of St. Paul in this space, and I can't thank them enough. Ricardo, do you have specifics on the best way to let us know when there are locations?
Absolutely. Council President Renmo and Council Member Prince, the first step is always, you know, to provide that information, and DSI is the department that collects that information, and we're the first ones to respond to those calls. So the 266-8989 is a great way to get it plugged in. We will insert that in the daily work of our staff. Sean Westenhofer, Steve Magner, you know, they're making those visits as quickly as possible. We try to get out there within 24 hours. The first step for us is to do an assessment, you know, of the environment, the surroundings in regards to any immediate risks, but we also want to engage the individuals living there to find out what their kind of medical status is, how they're doing, if they have any immediate needs, and then also is to connect them, which is our next step, is to connect them with our outreach and determine what their needs are so that they can get plugged into the system.
Great.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Ms. Prince. I saw Ms. Jalali and then Ms. Yang.
Thank you for this update. I guess that I have tried to work closely with you, Deputy Mayor, and then with our community partners as I can as Ward 4 Councilwoman to support the work happening. But it is and continues to be painful. I am grateful that so many of the folks that were previously unhoused now have some form of shelter. I guess I continue to think about how, as a city, and I know that you know this, and I know our colleagues are sharing this point of view, but we desperately need help from the Walz administration and from our state and federal partners to actually make this be something that permanently shifts and isn't just moving from encampment to encampment and site to site. And I'm glad to see we're working to provide hot meals and sanitary services in a pandemic where having housing is a public health imperative. The Walz administration did recently extend the eviction moratorium. I think virtually everyone here signed on to a major letter led by community asking them to do that and to make other significant actions as the pandemic extends to keep people housed. And we just really, really need a level of public commitment from levels of government far beyond us that starts to turn into resources on the ground. I just really, really can't emphasize that enough. I also want to just speak a little bit to the issue of volunteers. And I think we're just, not just I think, but it is just objectively true that we are living through a time in society of unprecedented need. And in my lifetime in Minnesota, I have never until this year seen so many mutual aid and solidarity networks being created where everyday people every single day and hour are pooling resources to just run supply drives and help people. And so as we've worked to, work well with those mutual aid networks, I've personally strived to help organizers who've reached out to me be in contact with groups like Radius Health and be in contact with Ramsey County and with our city staff as best as we can. I think that it would not surprise me if some volunteers and individuals doing this work in a volunteer capacity did not trust the government and did not want to communicate, and were kind of acting outside of that structure for a lot of understandable reasons. And so I guess I commit to helping facilitate and improving that. It is a team of folks surrounding people. There are hundreds of people who stepped up and raised money, helped donate vans. There's people doing laundry. I mean, the level of work happening by everyday people to just support our neighbors is unlike anything I've ever seen. And sometimes people talk about that and share it as like a noble thing. And I do think a lot of those efforts are heroic, but I am also just deeply saddened by the society we have where the number of unhoused people is the way that it is. So I guess I want to speak to that positively from a place of gratitude for the community efforts and not necessarily lionizing the reality that we're trying to meet. I hope that's making sense. So I appreciate this update, and those are some things that I'm working to help with. And I want to reiterate, I know that we need help far beyond just our own city, but I'll be following this closely. I mean, a lot of the smaller sites that you named on the slide and that are here are in and around Ward 4. And I know that we're all seeing smaller groups of folks who are trying to survive. So we'll stay in it, but thanks for the chance to share some thoughts and reactions.
Ms. Yang.
Thank you. I'm also very grateful for the update here. So thank you to our DSI staff and the many community partners, and also Deputy Mayor Tincher. I wanted to say thank you too. I really appreciated being able to get on the phone with you over the weekend, especially as our office was, getting swamped with a lot of these calls around what was happening on Lake Phelan. And I just have two quick things I wanted to mention. I know that you said in the PowerPoint that there aren't any plans to place any sanitation, maybe stations over by Lake Phelan, but I would like to, ask you to consider doing that, because whether, we have it or not, people who are unsheltered over at Lake Phelan will need to use the bathroom somehow. And I think it's really important to provide that basic necessity. I hear, from the public, folks are asking questions around, well, if we provide porta potties, it might make people want to come and stay here more. And I think that that's, completely disconnected from what we actually want to do, which is make sure that no matter what, we are providing basic services for people. I think that the porta potties won't incentivize people to come and stay here. The fact is that people are here because of many social factors around income or housing and so much more, especially with COVID here. And so I'm always trying to ground people in that so that they don't, get into a tunnel vision around just this whole topic around porta potties and whether or not we should provide it. And so the other thing is, I was wondering if you can talk a bit more about whether there's a timeline at all on a plan for the area over by Lake Phelan. A lot of people have been asking me, and so any information would be helpful so I can share it out to the public, whether it's around wraparound services or relocating folks to a place where there are those services. That'd be really helpful to know.
Yep, I'll start, and then Director Cervantes, why don't you weigh in and help me with some of this. So I think one of the challenges is that, and the question about sanitation services, the challenge for us, and I think it's among policymakers to think about is, for that location didn't exist until individuals were moved to that location, not in coordination with the city. And now the individuals who moved those folks to that location are demanding the city provide sanitation services. So I think we need to have some honest conversations about the dynamics that are at play. And, underneath that, we know for a fact that that was not the best location for specific individuals. I know because I went and I talked to the individuals there, and they are not within the distance that they need for the services that are going to help them get onto a path. And so that dovetails for me into the question about what's the timeline now for that Phelan location. I know that it is traumatic for the individuals if we have to move them, which is why we don't want to have closures. We want to be, the city of St. Paul's approach has been, if we are going to move an individual, we want to move an individual indoors and on a path to housing. We don't want to move individuals from one outdoor location to another. The 35E location, we needed to do that for the safety requirements. So there were individuals that we moved from 35E to Lower Landing, but that was strategic. So for the Phelan location, what I would say is we have about 18 tents there. We have give or take 20 individuals that are there. I know that there are a number of individuals that they have. There was a woman that we talked to who is working with Amber, who's the social services, the caseworker that works with our St. Paul Police Department Coast Unit. There was a woman there who had an appointment with her on Tuesday morning. Director Shute and I called Amber to make sure that she knew that that woman was at 35E, and if she didn't make her appointment, that's where we could follow up to find her. There was a gentleman who had moved to that location from behind the tennis courts. When I spoke with him, he said he doesn't want to go indoors. He lives outdoors year round. There was a gentleman that I spoke to who has been trying to get into housing. He has some things on his background that's preventing him right now. The city attorney's office is potentially going to be able to help us with some of that. So my best response is that our approach has been on each of these locations, how do we one by one figure out what is the option for each of those individuals that gets them indoors and on a path to whatever's going to be successful for their life. And that's going to take us a while. And really what complicated everything is that we would have preferred that not to be another encampment, another location in the city that we're needing to go to provide those services. So.
Thank you so much. Did you have follow-up, Ms. Yang?
I just have a quick question about, how this will look different during the winter time. And this was a question that was asked to me by a constituent yesterday. I think because they also have concerns about like the cold coming and encampments like still being here. And so can you talk a bit about that, like how operations might be different at that time?
So our process will stay the same. We know from past experience throughout the winter, we week over week had any number of folks that were sheltering outdoors. There are some folks that we know are going to be outdoors year round, even in the cold weather. Those numbers were significantly lower. Our expectation is that a lot more individuals, as it gets colder and colder, are going to take us up on options to go into shelter space, whether it's emergency shelter or 24/7 operations. So we believe that as it gets colder, we're going to have more individuals who accept those offers to come indoors. And our goal with the work we're doing with the county is to bring online many more beds and options so that we can meet that demand.
Thank you. Are there other questions from my colleagues? All right, it doesn't look like there are further questions. We really appreciate the follow-up, timely, and again, helps us answer questions that we're getting and tees us up for what's in front of us. So thank you so much, not only for the report, but for your hard work. As Ms. Prince pointed out, you're not sitting behind your desk doing this work, and both of you, we know that you are. Many folks are out really digging in and getting a clear understanding of how we can be most impactful. So thank you very, very much for that work as well, and as well as the update and report. We appreciate your being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Council President, the next item is the recessing of the council for the library board to adjourn or to convene.
All right. So the St. Paul City Council will be in recess. Ms. Prince, St. Paul City Council is called back to order. Roll call.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Nager.
Here.
Council President Brenmon.
Here.
7 present, no one absent. Item 18, Resolution 20-1269, approving a 2021 maximum property tax levy for the city of St. Paul.
And I believe that our budget presentations over the last 3 weeks would suffice as a staff report. We are looking at a 0% levy increase. Ms. Yang, did your amendment, that's just a word change I think you wanted to share.
Correct.
Would you like to talk about that? I think it's a great change.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that our resolution was, the language was more friendly for the public as they read it. I noticed it didn't explicitly say that we have a 0% increase from the levy this past year. So I just wanted us to put in that language and ask Holly to insert that. So that's what the second version is about.
And I really support and appreciate that amendment. And I just when we talk about the budget, it's always very complicated, especially I see people ask all the time, well, property values increase, so why don't we just have increased, why isn't the levy just automatically increased? And of course we have to add levy in order to capture that property tax growth. And it's a challenge for us every year. Even if we could have a year where absolutely nobody's taxes go up, but we also increase the levy. So we always look for improvements on the way that we converse about this topic because we want folks to understand. And so I would support the amendment. I think that it's a small change, and we can just vote on version 2 with that change in it, as opposed to vote in the amendment. Are there our folks want to weigh in on the proposed 0% levy increase? I know some folks shared thoughts with the library that were maybe cover both. I see both Ms. Prince and then Ms. Jalali have a hand up right now.
As each of you know, I had some last minute thought about whether or not to propose a 3% levy increase, given the deep and wide needs of our community, and I respect where my colleagues are on this, and I will be voting for the 0 increase. I do want to say that as I was wrestling with this, I did post it on social media last night, and I got a lot of really amazing feedback from our community, just very thoughtful. And one of the things that somebody pointed out, which we all know, it was this post: in times of economic hardship, the need for government services increases. We know that, and we know the needs this year are greater than they've ever been. We also know that taxes are hard, and that's what we're responding to. I do want to say I continue to be uncomfortable with the fact that the levy increase is something that is so widely misunderstood. the city levy, and Council President Brenmone points this out, and we always try to make this point. The city levy is not the major determinant of the increase in your property taxes. It is a very, very small portion. So if we had raised the levy today, it would have given us some room to move. We're deciding not to raise the levy today. I appreciate the mayor's austerity on this as well. So I am honestly, I respect everybody's position on this, and it's easy for me to get there. What this does do, and I think Councilmember Naker made this point, this really calls on us to show a kind of discipline that we that will be very difficult for us. The cuts to parks and libraries are hurting the people who need them most, and that is a huge problem during COVID and distance learning. The cutting of 10 inspectors will challenge our ability to get our economic development done. We're cutting funds in DSI that was earmarked for Ford. We need to figure out a way to restore some of these cuts that are in the mayor's proposed budget. And we're going to have to take a hard look at things that we maybe have not wanted to look at before. I feel very strongly, as Council President Brenmone does, that we owe it to the Law Enforcement Career Path Academy students to get them into our police department at a time when we do have to be concerned about what attrition is doing to our numbers on the street. So with all of that, I just want to be clear. I think this is going to be the toughest budget discussion that we have had in the years that I've been paying attention. And I know I've been pretty outspoken about the budget to date, and I will continue to do that because we have got to get our priorities straight as a city. So thanks to all of you, and I join you in the zero levy vote.
Thank you, Ms. Prince, and thanks for your thoughts. I have Ms. Jalali and Ms. Naker.
Thank you. Thanks, Councilmember Yang, for your thoughtful amendment. I think that is great, helpful language to clarify. I don't think the average person necessarily wakes up and reads about taxes and levies and all the minutia that is our role. So I'm very supportive of that. And I want to thank constituents who have reached out to me. This is a really difficult budget year. And I actually was heartened and encouraged by constituents who said, I'd be willing to accept an increase if it meant keeping up services. And I think that's generous and something to be thankful for. And I also don't feel like I can make that assumption of everyone else's willingness in the most difficult year financially and economically for our community. So I do think it's important to bear that in mind. But the spirit behind it is something that makes me proud to represent our ward and our community. And I think that is important to acknowledge. And I think it's our work to make disciplined choices over the next few months as we arrive at a final budget. I hear so much and continue to hear about concerns constituents have about departments that receive steady increases without similar results, and then others are taking cuts. And we are doing a budget in the year where George Floyd was murdered, and there's a national movement to defund the police. And I think we need to confront that head on and not run away from that conversation. And so I take that seriously as well as we think about how to get to the zero mark and also balance things overall in a way that is equitable. I think that is something we can't shy away from. So I am supporting the motion today. I've shared these thoughts repeatedly in multiple spaces. It's worth repeating again. But I really appreciate the thoughtfulness around the table because I do believe we're all united in wanting to have the strongest city possible in a very difficult year. So thank you very much for the time.
Ms. Naker.
Thank you, Council President. I wanted to just add two thoughts in response to what Councilmember Prince so eloquently said. I I completely agree with this tension of in economic and a social crisis, should government pull back or should government invest? And I think I've had a lot of constituents reach out to me and talk sort of about New Deal era type policies and works progress administration. And this is the time when the council should actually be spending more. And I think in that context, it's important to remember, as you were saying, Councilmember Prince, that we're really only talking about the general fund when we talk about our levy. But there's so much more to our budget, for example, our capital budget and the bonding that we do for the public works that we're going to do. And we haven't talked about our capital budget yet, but my understanding is we're not scaling back on that at all. We didn't scale back in 2020 from our construction project, and we're not planning to in the year ahead. And I think that is really the kind of investment in the infrastructure and the kind of building out of our city, creating good jobs, that kind of thing that I think of when I think of government investing in the city as a whole. So not necessarily our general fund salary dollars and that kind of thing. And then the second thing I just wanted to say is I am not looking forward to this budget year. This is the hardest year we will ever have, I hope, and certainly the hardest we've had in my time. But I do think that we can see it as an opportunity, because I think constraints and discipline can actually lead to creativity. And we've already seen that during COVID, how we've expanded the ways that we've been engaging people, the ways that we've been getting input, the ways that we've been engaging with our constituents. I am looking forward to figuring out how we can work within this envelope to work smarter, not harder, and to find efficiencies, and honestly, to look deeper into the nooks and crannies of our budget than I've ever looked before, and to try to be even more creative with how we can make those dollars stretch. So I just also wanted to put out there that I think this is a good challenge for us as we move forward in the next few months.
Thank you, Ms. Naker. Ms. Yang?
Thank you. Just wanted to say that I am in full support of the resolution here, and that I feel a deep appreciation for my colleagues at the table, because I know that a lot of our tensions come from the cuts being made, especially to services that directly impact our community members. And I'm talking about Parks and Rec. I'm talking about the libraries, especially. And so it's so, reassuring to see, everyone so deeply invested in providing these services for our community. And I feel, really inspired and also empowered as we continue talking about the budget moving forward. I think that we are in a moment where we will really be tested, to really challenge what is presented to us and to dig deeper into what it is that we want to make sure that we preserve and provide for our families. Every single conversation that I've had with constituents in my ward about the property taxes, they've said to me, Nelsie, please don't raise our property taxes. We're already struggling. And I've talked to a handful of people who have lost their jobs as well. And and so it's so sad and really a deep struggle to continue hearing these stories. But I really feel that we are making the right decision, and also that we need to think about what are certain things in our budget right now that maybe even if this year we had to say no to it, that we know that in the future it's something that we are still going to continue having and working toward. And so these are the things that are coming into mind for me, and I feel that we as a council, even prior to me being here, I've seen how, my colleagues, you all have really made deep investments already in our community that I feel, we're just beginning to see come into fruition right now. I'm talking about healing streets. I'm talking about, our community first public safety initiatives that you all have invested in, and just improvements to our systems overall that I think will really bring a lot of benefit to our community, and for us to really honor that we're actually doing a lot of really great work and investment, and how can we actually build on that while also really being in a time of struggle right now with the budget. I think that there's so much power to what you shared, Councilmember Jalali, around defunding the police, and if anything, our community is demanding us to really take a deep look at this. And I want to challenge and also push my colleagues to really be be one with those demands as well, and to think about how we can work collectively around that.
Mr. Tao.
Thank you, Council President. This is, for me, this is very historic that we are not raising the levy this year. And just over the years of working with the different neighborhoods and folks from the city, the people of St. Paul they're resilient. They're very creative and they're very determined. And I think they expect the same thing out of their city government, for the council, for administration, for all of us to be creative, to be resilient, and working together and being creative about this budget. So I think we will do everything we can to fulfill that for our residents. And I think that a lot of time when we ask our residents and to tighten the belts and because of the economic uncertainty, it's always good for us to start by tightening our belt first. And I think that's what we're doing here. We're leading by example here. And I also think that for all the years that I could remember, there's always been double-digit levy increase for some of the most disadvantaged neighborhoods across the city. And so I think this is actually a baseline for us, and that with zero levy increase, and for us to be creative, and then prepping for 2022. How do we the changes that we made this year going into 2021? How do we take that and how do we make it better? How do we become more efficient in 2022? If some of the experts said that this pandemic and this economic, it's going to take us a long time to recover economically. But just for social distancing, for us to be going out and about, it might take another year, give or take. And so we really do need to prepare for the uncertainty. And I think that part of the uncertainty is making sure that people feel safe, whether you're for more police or for less police, that we feel safe here, that we feel that we belong to this city and that we are welcome here, and we could be old and we could ride the light rail and feel safe. We could be young and be a person of color and ride the light rail and be safe, right? And so I think that's what we're trying to get at. And part of us being creative is taking the resource that we have and trying to build something else that we haven't imagined before. So I'm going to support this zero levy increase. And I know that some folks really think that we should play safe and not limit it. But I think playing safe also means not raising the levy and then being creative about how we could build this budget that worked for the city of St. Paul. Thank you.
Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I appreciate the comments that others have made. I will also be supporting this levy. And just a few things I want to say is I think it is important that we have a 0% levy increase, both for individuals who have to pay property tax either through rent or through a mortgage or whatever that may be. A lot of households are facing either job loss, unemployment, or involuntarily cutbacks on their work because they're also taking care of a child or doing distance learning or things like that. There's a lot of households that don't have the same income that they had a few months ago. But also our businesses, whether that's retail businesses, restaurants, or office businesses, are also facing these struggles too, both from a shutdown, but also from the economic recession that we're facing. And I think next year, when these property taxes will be due, that we're setting for here today, it could be even a more difficult position. We are in an economic recession, and unfortunately, until we get the COVID-19 pandemic under control, quite frankly, we need a national strategy or nationwide discipline to wear masks and do proper social distancing and take the proper precautions. But until that happens, we're going to be in this prolonged treading of water of an economic recession before we can even start a recovery. And so I think it is very important that we aren't adding those additional costs to people. It is going to be a very difficult budget year. We've gotten the preview of many of these budgets, and we've gotten the mayor's full budget proposal. And I think Councilmember Naker put it really well. We're setting where we're at now and where our limit is. I think I don't agree 100% of how the boxes are divvied up in terms of the amount of money that we have. And I think that's our job from between now and December to do that, and this puts us in. This sets our ceiling basically of how much we can spend, and I think our job is to analyze that. Even today, just asking some basic questions of what is that going for? Could you do efficiencies here? And I think we can find savings and we can move that around, and we should. And I have some proposals in my head that I'm working through, and I suspect other people do too, because none of these cuts are things that any of us cheer. But the one thing I will say to all my colleagues, and I will be held true to this as well, I hope, is when we do make those changes, we do have to propose the offsetting cuts for another department or another program as well. This is, for lack of a better term, boxing us in on our budget for the year. And we can't play both sides of the fence of, I don't want to cut this, but I'm not going to propose cutting this. And I hope all my colleagues take that to heart today. Like I said, all the proposed cuts are not things that we want. These are important services, but I think we need to prioritize what services are most important to the people in need, particularly now. And I think in a general sense, the budget does that. There are obviously tweaks and changes that I would like to see, as my colleagues would too. But as a whole, I think it is very important that we are not adding additional costs to families, businesses, and people, quite frankly, across the city. So that's why I support the 0% levy increase across the board today. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tolbert. And I appreciate the words of my colleagues. I don't want to repeat what's been said. Just wanting to say, kind of remind folks that we're in this position. We say COVID, and a lot of times people think it's all about the property taxes. And just a reminder that that's a part of it. But in this pandemic, we've also had a reduction in franchise fees, paramedic fees, our hotel tax, traffic fines, licenses, parking tickets, our partnerships and commissions and franchise fees. There's so many things that are coming in lesser, and so this challenge that we're have just agreed essentially to put ourselves into is a big one. And I appreciate and respect the fact that we're doing this at the same time honoring and respecting that our community members, our business owners, our apartment building owners, the folks that we are asking to keep rents low during this time by keeping our part of the property tax bill as low as we can by not increasing our levy. We'll say again that the levy is just a small part of a property tax bill, as Ms. Prince reminded us earlier. But our real work as a city council begins today once we establish this number and go forward and decide how we want to make adjustments to make a budget that we can agree with and get behind. But the parameters have been set at a 0% levy increase. And this, the last thing I will say is that, and this is like one of those things that's never going to end up in the newspaper, but I just want to say that we make many, many investments with our HRA and with the city council and with the programs and the things that we do to make St. Paul great that increase our tax base. And in order to capture that revenue, we have to increase the levy. So not increasing the levy is not exactly the panacea or the goal. I think this year, this is what we're trying to do. But I just do want to say that it is important to recognize that we need to we have to take this action in order to capture that increased property tax base. So there will come a time when we increase the levy, and it is simply to capture that tax base, and that is something that we should do. And really, ideally, it's something that should be happening on an every year basis on a smaller scale, so that we don't kind of do these fits and spurts of zeros and 20s and zeros and 20s. So I think sometimes our goal is to try to be zero, but the fact of the matter is our goal is to increase our tax base here in St. Paul so that when we do increase the levy, the pain is spread around, and in some cases we can even increase our levy and taxes will go down because those investments have paid off big time. So just sharing those thoughts. And I see Ms. Prince has her hand up again, and Mr. Tolbert as well. Ms. Prince.
And I know you were wrapping this up. And I really appreciate that. What I do want to say is, for the public watching this, the mayor through his proposed budget has achieved the lion's share of the savings in the general fund by permanently vacating positions in departments. And this comes at a time when, and especially, this is especially true with libraries, during the pandemic and the hiring freeze that we've had this year, the departments, in order to keep their costs down in a deficit year, were leaving positions vacant that were necessary positions. And so by permanently vacating those positions, we're not only creating holes in a number of our operations, like I said, with the 10 inspectors, but in order to bring those positions back, it will require a levy increase in a subsequent year. So just so that you understand that this means of achieving our zero levy this year is arguably not the best management solution, but it's one we're going to have to come back and deal with when we need to fill some of these vital positions in the future.
Mr. Tolbert, did you have another thought?
Just a question on that, since we can talk about the overall budget here with all of us being here. So, Councilmember Prince, would that proposal mean we don't eliminate those positions, that we keep those positions and hire for them, but have offsetting layoffs to make up the budget for that?
I'm not, what I'm saying is that the proposed budget is based primarily on the permanent elimination of positions in the general fund. So I'm just saying that if we uphold those cuts and we need to replace them in a future budget year, it will require us to raise the levy to bring those staff people back as it stands now. They're long-term. The general fund cuts are primarily permanent elimination of positions in departments across the city, some of which I think we would all agree are essential to our operations. So I'm not sure how we deal with that, but that's some of the work that we have to look at.
Okay. So sounds like folks have said their piece and then some. So why don't we move on to Ms. Yang has put forth a version 2 in Legistar, and there's support around that. So we will do a roll call.
Is this just on the amendment or the resolution as amended?
I think resolution as amended. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brandmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted as amended. Item number 19, Resolution 20-1230, authorizing the City of St. Paul to transfer $3,546,442 of the Coronavirus Relief Fund aid to specific accounts for the Guaranteed Income Pilot Program and the Bridge Fund Program. And this was laid over from last week.
All right, and so this is before us for a final vote again today, and we do have. Just quickly flipping through the attendees. So I know we have Munir Karcher-Ramos here and John McCarthy. If folks have questions, I know last week there were some concerns about answers to questions that came to us rather late on last Wednesday from Congresswoman McCollum, and a response letter went out this morning. I think we all have had an opportunity to read that response letter. So if folks have questions for Mr. Karcher-Ramos or for Mr. McCarthy, we can take those questions right now. Or if there's thoughts on this program before we go to a vote. And I'm looking to my colleagues. I see Mr. Tao and Mr. Tolbert have hands up. Mr. Tao?
Thank you, Council President. The question, thank you for the letter this morning. I think it was really helpful to read the response. I guess the question I have is that if we did move forward, what is your plan B? And if the feds come back and say, we won't allow the money for you to be used for this purpose, what is the plan B for that? And then I'll reserve my other question for later.
Council President Brenmo and council members, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to provide additional information about the People's Prosperity Pilot Program. So the resolution laid over last week was before you again today, and it relates to the $293,000 of the city's $23.5 million allocation for CARES funding for the program. And as we addressed, in the response to Congresswoman McCollum, regarding sort of the eligibility of CARES funds for the program, that in addition, to the city's analysis, that we have conferred, with lead staff at MMB, Minnesota Management and Budget, who oversees the CARES funding compliance, that, we're above board. And we've also secured a private consultant with expertise in incident and event emergency management, preparedness, response, and disaster recovery for pandemic events such as COVID-19 to affirm the use, of the CARES CRF funds as a qualified expenditure per U.S. Treasury guidance. So we're aware, of sort of the different parameters around the dollars and feel really confident that we're above board on everything and are headed down that pathway. I wonder if Director McCarthy would add to that.
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Tao, I would agree completely. We feel very confident in the analysis between our own internal review of this, the external consultants and state and other resources that we've checked in with. Also in our research, we've seen that this is very similar to what other cities are doing with their CARES dollars around the country. So this is not a unique program. To name a few: Austin, Texas, Fresno, California, Oklahoma City. Lots of cities are facing these same challenges and are standing up very similar programs. So we feel very confident in the use that we've designed, that we've specifically designed a program that meets these eligibility rules.
And Mr. Tao, are you going to reserve other questions for later?
Yeah, so my other question was with participants who are on other public assistance, can we get the county or the state to get them a waiver, some sort of waiver, so that they wouldn't count toward them?
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Tao, thank you for the question. We have been working very close with the state, particularly the Minnesota Department of Human Services, have been in conversation with Ramsey County as well. And to the question on the waiver, this is what we refer to as the income and asset exclusion. There are the Pathways to Prosperity program that received this waiver, as well as the Baby's First Years initiative that have very sort of comparable kind of cash transfers as this program. So we are submitting that request to the Minnesota Department of Human Services and have been in extensive conversation. So we are planning to pursue that waiver. And you may have seen in the acknowledgement letter from Congresswoman McCollum is that she is also happy to support us in pursuing these waivers.
Just a quick follow-up to that. When you say that you're in conversation with the state, what does that mean? Do they have some sort of supporting document or written document or email and say it's good to go?
So Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Tao, as you're aware, the Office of Financial Empowerment has a host family systems grant where we which is through the Minnesota Department of Human Services. So we have been working with our contact over there, the Economic Opportunity Office, on the specific language and around the waivers, and have a our request written up.
Does that answer your questions, Mr. Tao? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tolbert, and then Ms. Prince.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that. So how the program financing proposals to work is this CARES dollars is going to be the first money allocated to the 150 recipients. Is that right?
Council President Brenmoen and Council President Tolbert, yes.
Okay, and then after that, how much private philanthropic dollars are we leveraging?
Council President Brenmoen, Council Tolbert, $1.3 million.
Okay, and that will be the family assistance that will be for probably the 12 months worth of the 18-month program?
Council President Brenmoen, Council Tolbert, 15 months. 15 months.
So, and this kind of goes off Councilmember Tao's question, and it's exactly what I have asked with every conversation that I've had regarding this. Because the emergency orders from the governor and the city, probably mostly the governor, are in effect, it won't be counted as income, particularly if you get that waiver. So it shouldn't affect other public assistance, or do we know that for sure it will not affect that public assistance?
Council President Brenmoen and Council Tolbert. So generally, so I'll answer sort of the income and taxability question first. So generally all income is taxable unless exempted by law. As you know, there's at least 2 federal tax exemptions that might apply here. So the first is disaster relief, and the second is the general welfare exceptions. So like the bridge fund, the city will offer the guaranteed income payments as disaster relief payments, which we believe are not taxable. So this would alleviate the need for us to require W-9s and 990s like we did with the bridge fund. With that said, the city, is not in a position to give particular sort of tax advice to individuals, just like we did, with the bridge fund. We would advise anyone, to, get that tax advice. I think as we look at the benefits eligibility question, then is regardless, we will be we'll be contracting with an enrollment specialist to basically do benefits reviews with everyone about any potential there may be for any type of benefit impact. And we suspect, with the waiver, that much of that will be mitigated.
Okay. And so that initial review is going to be important, and because this is very similar to the bridge fund and there's an emergency in order and it's CARES money, I'm not, it's not my legal opinion or anything like that, but I'm more confident that it won't be considered income and would not affect public assistance. The second question is if and when an emergency order goes away and it's philanthropic dollars rather than CARES dollars, are we going to re-engage with the recipients to ensure that they are making educated choices? Because that's where my concern of the change is going to be. And obviously we can't give people tax advice, but I find my taxes aren't particularly complicated, and I find that complicated. Public benefits are even more complicated. And when you add all that together, I want to make sure that we are helping families. And the last thing I want, and I've said this, I think I'm a broken record on this, but the last thing we'd want is for someone to lose their public assistance housing grant or their public assistance food grant or child care grant or anything like that. And that's my concern, is if this is considered income, we jeopardize these grants, which in some cases are bigger than the $500 allocation they're getting. Granted, I'm not saying there are enough public assistance for what people need to live, but it could jeopardize that. And I want to be confident that we are doing our due diligence so we are not inadvertently having people get removed from their public assistance, because even if it's only for a month or two, the reapplication sometimes takes a month or two, and there could be a gap month in there, which would be very devastating for a family. So how can we as a council be sure that what we're voting for today is going to follow that path, and that the families who are added to the grant are going to be able to have good advice from people who really understand these public assistance and grant applications?
Council President Brendan Moen, Councilwoman Tolbert. So as we mentioned last week, and I expound upon further this week, is that we have been working, with a whole host of public agencies, community-based organizations, who operate in this public benefit space and, have expertise in this space. And we've been working with the Children's Defense Fund Minnesota on the they have basically a benefits review tool called the Economic Stability Index, which lets folks know if there are any types of cliff effects. So this will be something that we will continue to lean on and rely on in that benefits review, so that families are fully informed. And we are doing this regardless, of, despite we're landing on sort of these dollars not being taxable, like the Bridge Fund, we're offering sort of this benefits, review and counseling, despite that. So families will have access to, folks who will be able to, speak about benefits and those sort of things. So again, we believe we're have sort of created the type of supports that families need to be fully aware and, make the decisions, for themselves.
So are you guys committed to re-engaging every recipient if the way the dollars are going to them changes? Council
President Bremo and Councilmember Tolbert, we are engaging, plan to engage, with families. It's going to be part of sort of our program design. So to answer your question is yes.
Okay, so when will that program design be where we have it written out?
So the Council President Bremo and Councilman Tolbert, we have sketched out, the program, the orientation, the paperwork, the benefits review, all that. So we do have a number of these items, sketched out already, and we just have to hammer out a few details on, with Ramsey County, just on some referrals.
Okay, so two quick questions and just easy answers. So the CARES money, you do not believe will affect someone's public assistance benefits, and we are working to not have it included as income with an exception.
Council President Brad Moen, Councilmember Tolbert, the payments will be not taxable and would not impact, individuals' benefits according to the taxability. The benefits counseling would, reveal if there is any types of impacts, and it does depend on a case-by-case basis. For example, SSI is a particular sensitive one, but we suspect that we won't have a lot of folks, with SSI, particularly in this population, since we're focused on, families with babies.
And one changing the name of it might be helpful in making that case. But the second question I have is, my understanding is the proposal has changed the policy on zip codes.
Council President Bremo and Councilmember Tolbert, in response to the concerns raised by Council last week related to geographic eligibility, the mayor's asked the city attorney's office to draft a new executive order which will expand eligibility such that any low-income St. Paul resident who's a parent or guardian of a college-bound St. Paul beneficiary and who's experiencing adverse financial consequences as a result of COVID-19 will be eligible for the program regardless of address, ward, or neighborhood.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Okay, I see Ms. Nicker and then Ms. Jalali. I'm sorry, you know what? I will just say Ms. Nicker and Ms. Prince, my cursor was hanging over Ms. Prince's thing. So And then we'll go on to Ms. Jalali.
Great. Thanks so much, Council President. And thanks so much, Mr. Coche-Ramos, for being here to speak with us again. I appreciate the due diligence that happened between last week and this week. I think for me, it was really important that we proceed with this pilot, which, again, I am generally supportive of the concept of, but I wanted it to be thoughtful, in collaboration with our federal partners and not damaging any relationships with them or any possibility for many, many more dollars in support from them. And also to make sure that we would be able to do this without the use of city general fund dollars. And the questions that were raised right before our meeting last week did call that into question for me. Having read the letter that has been sent back to Representative McCollum's office and hearing what you've said today, I do feel comfortable moving forward in favor of this today. And I'm also really glad to hear that it has been expanded citywide. I think that was definitely the right thing to do. And I appreciate Mr. Tolbert bringing that up last week. I just want to say, as a process point, these are, it's unfortunate to me that we had to push back a week because obviously, as you pointed out last week, we really need to get these dollars out the door. And we have a limited deadline to spend them with CARES. And I regret that we had to wait a week to get this information. And so I just would encourage you and the administration in general, as you're building out these programs and thinking these things through, let's have these conversations earlier. Let's have you come to a council meeting and talk about these things. Let's ask these questions not when we're on the line with the funding dangling in front of us and a deadline approaching quickly, but far in advance, right when you're starting to design the eligibility forms and thinking through how it's going to work. Because I just think we can be much more collaborative about this and work smarter together. So I hope we can do that next time.
Thank you, Ms. Naker. Ms. Prince.
Here, Ms. Naker. I can't say enough about more communication is always better. And I definitely support the program in principle. In terms of what we just did, which was passing a 0% levy increase, I just want to be clear on the staffing of this. You said that we're going to be contracting with financial counselors, and what will be the city staffing relationship to this, given that it's a national network and the philanthropy, it sounds like, is being done. Some is being done at the local level, but predominantly from the national level. If I could just understand what city staff will be working on this and to what extent of their time. This is a new program, and your office is going to be really busy doing education and outreach for the tenant protection ordinance. So I just hope you would like you to address staffing.
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Prince, the Office of Financial Empowerment has secured funding for the Mayors from Guaranteed Income network. That involves fully funding a program consultant who will run the day-to-day operations, so that's fully capitalized on. Second is that the Mayors for Guaranteed Income network has also funded a research fellow to handle the sort of the demonstration project, on the research side of things. What does that entail then for city staff? Casey Wiedrick, who is our program manager, financial capability program manager, she will be overseeing the program consultant and the research fellow. And this is actually intertwined with our whole family systems grant through the Department of Human Services, as it is the People's Prosperity Pilot is connected to College Bound St. Paul. So that grant in particular was for any type of family supports and wraparound. So it's within the funding that also supports Casey and her work there.
Great, I appreciate that. I have really appreciated the work that your office does, the metrics that you always work to set and to meet. And so I'm just glad we got that clarification on the record.
Thank you, Ms. Prince. Ms. Jalali, then Mr. Tao.
Thank you. I also appreciate the clarifications made. I have the very detailed letter back to our Congresswoman, and I appreciate the work shown. I know that it reflects the care and attention that has gone into this, and I just, given that so much has been brought up about benefits cliffs, which I think is a very rightful question and conversation to have, I want to emphasize, and I do feel, Munir, that you're fully holding this worldview that I think the city's role is to make every form of assistance available and then ensure families can make ethical and well-informed decisions for themselves from a place of just economic autonomy and the relative privilege that we have as council members and elected officials in the government. I think that's important. And so I am very glad to hear that a partnership has been designed around that goal, that there's a resounding commitment to individual follow-up with families in the program to make sure as the phases of the program progress and as we continue to navigate the future that counseling and the information will be provided. I also think it's important to consider as a part of that, there are lots of families who can qualify for this and wouldn't reach a benefits cliff, and to just imply that we should take the choice off the table entirely because others might not otherwise be in that situation is also hard for me to grasp. I think it's important, and I think that the questions around it are coming from a place of wanting to make sure we don't have unintended negative consequences. I certainly want to make that clear, but I do feel we have to think about it in scope of what our role is. So I've continued to be supportive and will be, but I appreciate the conversation and the points made, and for the round two in writing and in person. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Jalali. Mr. Tao?
Thank you, Council President. Overall, I'm very excited about this this endeavor, and I think that one of the theme that we have in this country, or the issue that we have, is that you have the people who are ultra rich, super rich, and then we have some of the people in our community, our neighbors who are struggling. And so I think this is, we have to come up with different tools, different ideas on how to help the needy people in our community. At the same time, do it in a way that makes sense, so that people who don't understand the program, or people who haven't been educated on the program, can understand that the program, it's good for them too. If they may not get the $500, but the $500 go to one of their neighbors, who then can have a opportunity to put food on the table, and so that there's a ripple effect that if we help the people in a poorest neighborhood, it's going to have a positive impact on people who live on Summit Avenue. And so I think that's why it's important for us to raise these questions. I think that one of the things that I like to see is that, from Munir, what is your recommendation on when do you and your team want to come back and just share with us as we go forward, whether it's part of the planning or some of the program result? I think we'd be really interested in hearing those data.
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Tao, we're fully committed to share the progress of the program, and the results that are yielded from it. Again, we're working with a third-party evaluator at the University of Pennsylvania and the University of Tennessee who have experience in this, and we'll be looking at the data regularly, and we'll be happy to report back to the council, both in written form and any type of presentation that you would like.
Thank you. Ms. Naker?
Thank you. Just switching gears momentarily, I realize that this is just one resolution about two different things, and we've spent most of our time talking about a part that's actually less than 1% of what we're doing here. So the rest of the $3.5 million that we're talking about is going to go back to replenishing our business assistance funds. And I just also wanted to say that and recognize how exciting it is that we really poured out those funds completely to help our businesses at a time when they needed it, and we're now getting those dollars back into our business assistance funds, hopefully to provide more of that help. And Mr. McCarthy, I just wanted to confirm with you that what we do today will immediately move those dollars into those business assistance funds so PED can distribute them to businesses that are in need.
Council President Brenmo and Council Member Naker, that's correct. By funding the bridge fund out of the CARE CRF budget, we're longer allowing HRA resources to go towards the work for which they were originally budgeted, which includes both business assistance and the Housing Trust Fund. And that work will continue in 2020 as well as into 2021 with those restored resources. And just a reminder that the HRA is in front of you next week to present their budget, and they'll have more details on how those restored resources will be programmed.
Thank you, Ms. Dinker. And I know that we're anxious to redeploy those dollars, so thank you for that question. Are there folks have generally had a chance to weigh in on, we're voting on this resolution that's in front of us. I'm seeing Mr. Tolbert has his hand up, and then I'd like to go to a vote. Mr. Tolbert?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you for the follow-up on the questions. I am going to be supporting this today. I think most important thing is it's going to help people who are particularly in desperate need. My questions are regarding the public assistance and the due diligence on that, not because I oppose public assistance, and I know our public assistance program is not robust enough in this country or in the state. However, I don't want any of the unintended consequences on families that are already struggling quite a bit. And that's why my question, and I think the due diligence now and into the future. And I know that when the private money comes in and this program is continued out, you'll be back before the council for further approvals. And my expectation is that we will have very clear answers on what the change from CARES money to philanthropic money will mean for individual recipients, and what changes could happen if the emergency order is lifted and it changes what that is like. Some of the other things I will add is I do think this isn't necessarily basic income. It's really just a stronger social safety net, something that I strongly support. And one of the things that I think is the best about this proposal is that we are leveraging a lot of outside money, not only the federal CARES money, which is the people's money, but we are leveraging outside philanthropic money into the city of St. Paul, and that's good for not only the recipients of this, but the businesses that they go to and the entire neighborhood and city. I also concur with Council President Brenmoen's statement from the press conference that I don't think we are long-term the right level of government to do this. I think the county or state or federal level is a better and more naturally appropriate based on current public assistance programs to have this. However, as was well stated, we need some of the data on this, and we need to show that helping people does help the economy and does help people in their times of need, and hopefully helps them get out of economic situation and up into a better economic situation. So thank you for answering all your questions. Like I said, I expect more definitive answers on those changes, and I hope that every person is engaged when those situations change so we don't have any unintended consequences. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Tolbert. I see Ms. Yang has her hand up, and then I would like to go to a vote. Ms. Yang?
Thank you. I am also really supportive of this, and I wanted to just get a refresher on how families will be selected for the guaranteed income. I know that the pool of people who are eligible for this are from the College Savings Fund, but Munir, can you dig a bit deeper into that selection process?
Council President Brenmoen, Councilmember Yang, selection will be starting from the base of enrolled college-bound St. Paul families. With the new executive order that will be issued, this will be from across the city, not just to the zip codes as we described at last meeting. And then from there, based on that random selection, folks will receive outreach and will be determining whether they have a COVID economic impact or not. And we'll continue to work down the list until we're fully, reach our enrollment threshold.
Okay. Can I follow up as well, Council President?
Please.
Are you planning to come back and present to the council more details before basically, applicants get selected for this, or what does that timeline look like?
Council President Brenmo, Councilmember Yang, we will be bringing back information on at the point of like who is selected, and sort of be able to put together a profile for you all of who's in this cohort.
Okay, would you be able to just email us or communicate to us somehow, like what those, what questions, I guess, like, you're going to be asking applicants to verify like their eligibility for this? I feel like I need some more clarification so that if people do ask questions, I'd be able to give them answers about it.
Council President Brenmo, Councilmember Yang, I will have our team members follow up with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yang. Mr. Tolbert, did you have other thoughts? No. Okay. Just looking at hands. All right. Well, this is before us then for a vote. Thanks for the discussion of both parts of this resolution. I do appreciate that. And so with that, Ms. Jalali will move approval, and we'll go to roll call.
Prince. Aye. Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmo.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item number 20, ordinance 20-31, creating chapter 142 of the legislative code pertaining to a special service district in downtown. And then we're also going to be holding the public hearing on item 21, resolution public hearing 20-198, imposing a service charge in the St. Paul Downtown Special Service District pursuant to Minnesota Statutes Chapter 428A.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. And so, as Ms. Moore mentioned, we'll be taking a public hearing on both of these items together. We have two people who are on the line to speak with us, Mr. Repke and Mr. Spencer, who gave us an update as a org committee report a few weeks back. And so we'll take this as a public hearing. There's also additional comments that have been submitted online, which are attached to the Legistar attachment in front of us. So we will, unless we need a separate staff report, which I believe, as I mentioned, was covered in our update from Mr. Spencer, why don't we go to comments? Ms. Yang, did you have a question, or is your hand just still up? Okay, sorry to do that to you. If our folks fine just going to the public hearing, I'm looking at my colleagues. Ms. Moore.
You do have an amendment pending for the ordinance.
Okay. Ms. Naker, would you like to talk about the amendment?
Thanks. Yes, I would like to move version 2 in Legistar. It just contains some slightly different language about the exemptions and lack thereof that are being sought by the taxing district.
Okay, so Ms. Naker makes an amendment. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmo.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The amendment is approved.
All right, so we have an amended version ahead of us, and seeing that the staff or the updates that we had from the Downtown Alliance a few weeks back was sufficing as a staff report, we will move on to our public hearing. And again, I mentioned we have two people who are on the line to speak with us. First being Mr. Chuck Repke on behalf of Mr. Brooks from downtown. So let's start with Mr. Repke, and then we'll move on to Mr. Spencer.
Council President Brenmo, and this is Mr. Repke on the line.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm Chuck Repke, and I'm here today representing Dave Brooks, the owner of the Minnesota Club Building, 317 Washington Avenue, in the proposed district. There are multiple reasons to not approve the ordinance. The COVID crisis is not the time to increase taxes on commercial property owners downtown, while our restaurants are going out of business and tenants are either leaving downtown or demanding discounts because of their workforces working from home and not going into their offices. More so, you should not approve the ordinance that targets only half of downtown because it was not able to win the majority of downtown building owners' support. It failed to win that support because its focus is on trivial issues like sweeping sidewalks, while the real problems of security and safety is only marginally addressed. This proposal misses the spirit and intent of Chapter 428 Special Service Districts. The idea is to have a clearly defined area that desires certain services and are willing to impose a fee on themselves to have those services delivered. This gerrymandered district was designed this way because most downtown commercial property owners do not support the proposal. Though this service area appears to be for the western half of downtown, they added 6 blocks east of Cedar, where the building owners support the tax, to be able to impose this special tax on the western half of downtown. The fact that the district has no logical reason to be shaped that way, nor any shared interest between the properties, did not dissuade them from moving forward. Because of the shape of the district and the types of services that are proposed within the district, its establishment and taxing authority are ripe for litigation. It will be difficult to prove what direct advantages commercial property owners get out of visitors being directed to the Ordway, or why buildings with a significant amount of square footage but limited street frontage should pay more than shorter buildings with the same street frontage to have their sidewalks swept. You also need to consider the opportunity cost of locking in this partial district for the next 5 years with the proposed services when the current security concerns could stimulate a downtown improvement district that could make some real impact. Every building owner in downtown St. Paul is concerned about security issues on the streets and in our skyways. If the Downtown Alliance would have a real proposal for enhanced security, we could put together a district that included every commercial building downtown. There is no way to improve security downtown with the proposed map. The bulk of the Skyway system is outside of the map, and Kellogg, Mears Park, and the 5th and Cedar train stations are not included. Nobody can view any proposal that did not include all the Skyways as a serious proposal. Any coordinated camera system that only included the district would be useless, and a camera system that serviced non-taxed buildings would once again open challenges from buildings within the district to the tax being imposed on them for services delivered outside the district. They can't tax my client to provide services outside the district. This proposal to tax commercial property owners to fund greeters and sidewalk sweepers has remained the same since its inception. Despite the resistance from owners of better than half of the commercial properties downtown, they have pressed forward with this gerrymandered district that will have marginal impact. The current COVID crisis has closed many businesses and put a strain on all commercial buildings that have leasing tenants. It has also made the security concerns of downtown St. Paul clear to everyone. Now is the time to bring forward a serious proposal to use this tool to address the security issues facing downtown. Finally, this proposal depends on 25% of the funding coming from the city of St. Paul and Ramsey County taxpayers. More than $155,000 this year and more than $353,000 a year for the rest of the district's life is projected to be picked up by the taxpayers. Your properties downtown are tax exempt. They expect you to just donate the money. That in a year when you guys are making huge cuts. And by definition, this is for services that other taxpayers don't get. This is a special service district that is supposed to be exclusively funded by commercial buildings in the district. But since they don't have their support, they expect you to have the residents of St. Paul pick up the tab. It's up to the City Council to show leadership, turn down this proposal, and send the Downtown Alliance back to develop a proposal that can be supported by all of downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Repke. And then we will be hear from the director of the Downtown Alliance, Joe Spencer. So welcome, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, Council President Bren Moen, members of the City Council. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep, we can.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you for the time and for the opportunity to just help make the case about why this is such a great opportunity for downtown St. Paul right now, and for all of St. Paul, really, for that matter, because of the importance, of course, of the downtown. When I go back, so I've been in this role for a couple of years, and when we started, the mission of the Alliance is to help drive jobs and vitality into downtown St. Paul. And one of the first sort of 3 orders of business was to study the feasibility of a special services district or downtown improvement district. And as I think it's helpful to think about the vision for all of this. Our vision for downtown is that we're a downtown that at any given hour, on any given corner, you're going to find a place that's alive with diverse people. And we do that sometimes now. We have those great moments where you feel that energy of a thriving downtown. But there are too many times when maybe you're leaving work late at night or you're here in an off hour, and we don't quite yet have the density to create the consistency for that, again, any given hour, any given corner kind of downtown. And so we need to grow, and we have a vision for growth. And when we look at the cities and the downtowns that are growing, when we look around, we see this tool, these downtown improvement districts consistently in other downtowns able to accelerate that growth. And so we look to other cities across the country for best practices. We look to Minneapolis. We piloted a portion of the downtown and with a portion of the services last year. And we had a lot of conversation with building owners and business leaders, the commercial business building owners, especially that would be asked to pay for this, about where there was support for this, where there's interest in creating such a district. And so we focused our efforts in the area where we had the strongest amount of support. And we crafted a proposal, and then COVID came along. And so we went back and sort of made adjustments to the sort of the immediate economic realities and really did focus. The focus all along has been on a safe and clean program. And as we think about 2021 and this initial budget, it's almost exclusively focused on that sort of safety issue. So building out the Safety Communication Center and the Fusion Center so that we can create the collaborations, the partnerships, the communication pathways that improve security outcomes and perceptions for the district. And so we'll be working to network all of the private security teams in the buildings in the district, along with the social service providers that are in the district, along with law enforcement, to come up with, again, better outcomes and better perceptions about safety. The COVID crisis did force us sort of back to the drawing board, and we chose to be responsive to that, to phase in the implementation. But the other thing that COVID has done is made this a more important time. There's never been a more important time to create this kind of tool. At some point, this crisis is going to end, and we will be getting back to our 55,000 workers in downtown, and we'll be getting back our millions of visitors that have been staying away because of the COVID crisis. But when we do, we're going to need this tool, we're going to need this infrastructure, and we're going to need this program to help accelerate that recovery. We will need to have this additional layer of service in order to be able to keep pace with the rest of the downtowns. All the other downtowns in the country that have these districts, their staffs were essential and have been in place, and they are going to have these services in place. We're still catching up, and I think we can do it, but now is the time. There has never been a more important time. And again, getting back to the basics, what it's going to allow us to do is accelerate that recovery so we can grow our downtown. That conversation earlier about increasing density so that we can actually push taxes down, that is the goal here. And as far as the public participation, the idea here is this applies to commercial property owners by state law. The city and the county have a lot of commercial properties, be it parking ramps or office buildings, and their workers have the same interest as the workers of the private buildings. And so the idea amongst the property owners has always been that the city and the county pay their fair share as fellow office buildings in the downtown. And as far as support goes, I'm really pleased with the amount of support we have from this district. We've got large employers that are leading this effort, along with competitive office buildings. So we've got Security and Ecolab and Travelers, but we've also got Wells Fargo and the UBS Tower and Infor Commons and the Osborne Building, and we've got a cadre of smaller buildings like the Coney Island and the Grace Building. And even hotels, which are really struggling, but see the need to create this kind of program, this kind of tool, so that when the time comes, we can accelerate this recovery. So I urge you to support this. A lot of work has gone into this over the years, dating back to Riverfront Corporation and the Downtown Vitality Vision, and well before that. And we've, again, tried to craft it as it is intended to be by business for business. It's self-imposed and self-managed. And so we concentrated the geography of the district where we had the support, which felt sort of logical and in keeping with the spirit of the Special Services District provision. So we hope to have your support for this. Thank you for the opportunity to make your case, and to make my case, rather. And with that, I'll sign off.
Thank you so much, Mr. Spencer. With that, Ms. Naker would move to close the public hearing. Roll call.
Prince? Aye. Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Sorry, Councilmember Brenmoen.
Yes.
I'm sorry, this is Assistant City Attorney Adam Niblick. I believe this matter was supposed to be laid over, holding the public hearing over until the next hearing.
Well, we're just closing the public hearing. We won't vote on the actual item until the next meeting. The public hearing was actually last week and we laid it over to this week. So I believe we can close the public hearing.
You can still take comments after the public hearing is closed.
Okay.
All right.
Better safe than sorry. Thank you.
I apologize then for the interruption.
No. Thank you for your for the clarification. So we're just closing the public hearing, and again, folks can continue to share input on the Legistar system through next week when we vote for the final vote. I'm sorry, I lost track of where we were. So did we get through the vote for the public hearing closure?
No.
Okay.
No, I'll start over. Prince?
Okay.
Does Ms. Naker have a question? I was going to ask this question because I noticed in the public comment that there was a concern expressed about whether the public hearing notice had been adequate. So I wonder if that's what Mr. Niblick is referring to. And I see that others have hands up. So if that's not the case, I just thought I'd mention that.
Ms. Naker, is your question about whether or not we should close the public hearing?
Yeah, I just had my hand up to comment afterwards. So.
And Mr. Tao, did you have a question about closing the public hearing? I believe you're on mute.
No, I want to speak. I want to make a comment.
Okay, so let's close the public hearing, and then Ms. Prince, this was on the agenda last week as a public hearing, and again this week as a public hearing. So maybe it was about last week that the question was. And so it's admittedly a bit of a messy notice, but let's let Sherry do a closure of the public hearing, and then we will go on to comments and questions.
Okay.
And then maybe after this item, we'll stretch.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Shalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed for both Ordinance 20-31 and Resolution Public Hearing 20-198, but we will continue to take comments after this.
All right, Ms. Naker.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you to both Mr. Repke and Mr. Spencer for coming to speak and waiting on hold for, I think, about 90 minutes to speak to us today. Really appreciate your patience. There's always this tension between whether you speak at the public hearing or whether you speak at final approval, which will be next week, and or next time we meet. And I guess I just feel really energized, and I just want to speak today, so I'm going to speak today. And I have to say I'm so excited about this item that's in front of us. It has been needed for decades. It has been something I have been talking about ever since I took office with so many of our corporate leaders downtown, so many of our residents saying, why don't we have X, Y, and Z? And it's because we have been behind. As Joe points out, every other larger city and so many smaller ones have these districts. And I don't know about you, but I don't like us being behind. St. Paul should never be behind. And so this is the beginning of us catching up. I want to be clear, though, that even though I strongly support this, this is not something that is being initiated by City Hall. It's not something that can be initiated by City Hall. By statute, this has to be initiated by the private property owners themselves. And I think it is worth noting that, not only because that's the way that the law sets it up, but because I think that really says something about who our corporate leaders and who our property owners are in downtown St. Paul and frankly, in the entire state of Minnesota. One of our greatest strengths is that we have always had corporate leaders and property owners who are public spirited and generous and who spend hours on committees and boards and giving of their time and their treasure to causes that are beyond their own bottom line because they see their success as inextricably connected to the success of our city. And that's not just when times are easy, that's also when times are hard. Throughout this pandemic, throughout the crises we've been going through, we have been seeing these leaders stepping up at the Downtown Alliance table and at other tables as well. So I just deeply want to thank the corporate leaders who are saying today that they want to assess themselves at a higher rate to pay for cleanliness and safety and security and a welcoming feeling downtown. I want to thank them. I want to thank SEIU and the building trades who sent us letters of support and who've expressed support for this and worked to make this right. I want to thank Joe and Emma at the Downtown Alliance for their tireless work on this. And I really do just want to celebrate the beginning of what I really believe is a new day, a great new beginning for downtown.
Thank you, Ms. Dinker. Mr. Tao, did you have
I do.
Mr. Tao?
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I'm also very excited for this. I've heard people say St. Paul is a city of neighborhoods, and downtown is one of our neighborhoods too. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to help build downtown. And I understand and I respect Joe and Mr. Repke, but at the end of the day, this is about bringing harmony to St. Paul and how we generate our tax and how we build our city. We have to this bring balance to our city, and so in order for the neighborhoods to do well, we have to have a strong downtown, and a strong downtown have to support all the neighborhoods. And that's how we will have a sustainable city. So this is one of the tools that we can use to do that and to get there. And, there'll be some challenges, growing pains, but this is the right direction. So I'm going to support this.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. Are there other comments from council members? Okay. Well, so given there aren't other comments at this time, just making sure that we're doing this correctly, we will lay this matter over for 1 week. And I'm looking at you, Ms. Moore, for a nod. Yes, we'll lay this matter. Ms. Naker moves to lay the matter over for final reading next week.
And we'll need to vote twice, once on the ordinance layover and once on the resolution layover.
Yep. All right. So let's start with the first one. Ms. Naker moves 1 week layover. Roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is laid over to September 23rd with comments still being taken.
And on the, we read the item number, is it 21?
Yes.
initially. So Ms. Naker moves to lay this matter over for 1 week. So we'll pass these two concurrently. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution, which is Resolution Public Hearing 20-198, is laid over to September 23rd with comments still being taken. Item number 22, Resolution Public Hearing 90-194, approving the application of Kim O'Brien, Rice and Larpenteur Alliance for a sound level variance in order to present amplified sound on Saturday, September 26th for the Rice and Larpenteur event at 1675 Rice Street in the Strip Mall parking lot.
And this is a public hearing. Comments have been submitted online, and I would just add my own comments that I think this is a really innovative way to get out and celebrate some of the improvements we're making at Rice and Larpenteur in COVID with a LARPen tour and some socially distanced event. I invite my colleagues to join us as we continue to engage community members at the intersection of Rice and Larpenteur, where 3 cities and the county comes together with 3 districts. So it should be a fun time, and I would move this item so fully support it. Any discussion on that motion? Hope to see you there. Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
That was a yes.
Yes.
okay, Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 23, Resolution Public Hearing 20-193, authorizing the Department of Parks and Recreation to accept a donation in the amount of $15,000 from the Minnesota Vikings to support the St. Paul Parks and Recreation Certified Youth NFL Flag Football League, and to amend the Department of Parks and Recreation grant fund budget in the amount of $15,000 to reflect said donation.
All right, and this is a public hearing. Comments have been taken online. If there's no discussion, Ms. Prince would move to close the public hearing and approve. Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 24, Resolution Public Hearing 20-196, approving the first edition Highland Bridge row home preliminary plat.
All right, and I believe that there is a staff report on this item. Is that the case, Mr. Tolbert?
Not this one, but staff is here to answer questions.
All right, so staff is here to answer questions on this item. Are there questions? It's a pretty exciting resolution. Looking to see if there's questions. Doesn't appear to be. So Mr. Tolbert would move to close the public hearing and approve. Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 25, Resolution Public Hearing 20-197, approving modifications to Neighborhood Star Program funding for the Taste of Rondo LLC.
And this is the public hearing. It's been held online, and comments would be attached to Legistar. It does not appear that there are any. Given such, Mr. Tao would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 26, Ordinance 20-30, amending Chapter 66 of the Legislative Code pertaining to residential standards in planning districts 14 and 15.
All right. And I am sorry, Mr. Tolbert, did you say this is the one with the staff report?
No, staff is here. Mr. Richardson's here, who's done a lot of work on this. If questions are, I don't have anything to say except to thank Mr. Richardson for his work over the years on these, and I will make a motion to close the public hearing and approve. Or lay over, probably. Sorry.
Oh, it's a third reading. Okay, thank you. So Mr. Tolbert, the online public hearing's been held online, and Mr. Tolbert has moved to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? All right, roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye. Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the ordinance is laid over to September 23rd for final adoption. Item 27, APC 20-6, considering the appeal of the Hamlin Midway Coalition of a Planning Commission decision approving a conditional use permit for restaurant drive-through reconstruction with building replacement.
All right, and Ms. Jalali, is there a staff report on this item? I imagine so. I'm looking at to see who is here to give that report.
I believe so.
Josh is here.
Mr. Williams, you have a staff report for us. Are you still with us?
I turned on my camera, but not my video. My apologies.
Okay. No, that's all right. I just, I've switched you to a presenter if you'd like the screen.
I will not be using the screen. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you again, Council President Brendan and council members. I would like to give a brief staff report to sort of set the stage for the discussion, and I'll try to do so quickly. I'm going to kind of touch on three things. One is a very high-level overview of the subject of the public hearing. I also want to call your attention to two items that were included in the public record as attachments in Legistar, just to give you some visuals to work with, since I will not be presenting any. And then I want to give some background on the site and the specific Planning Commission decision being appealed. So the item before you is an appeal. Border Foods, which operates the existing Taco Bell restaurant at 565 North Snelling, that's the southwest corner of Snelling and Edmond, about a fifth of a mile or so north of University, is seeking to rebuild that restaurant with the drive-through. Per the zoning code, that requires, with a new building, it requires a new CUP. The Planning Commission approved a CUP earlier this year, and the Hamlin Midway Coalition is approving that appeal. Briefly, and I would refer the council members to the testimony from the zoning committee that was entered into the record, but the biggest issues raised by those in opposition to the application for the CUP were around the general appropriateness of an auto-oriented use at that particular location, and the noise associated with drive-through operations, particularly late at night. As I noted, I would like to refer you to two specific items for a visual of the site, and anyone else listening should be able to see these. There is a document entitled Staff Report Packet, Taco Bell CUP, and I would call your attention to pages 9 and 16 of that document as numbered in the PDF reader. Page 9, you can see the site plan as proposed in 2020 for the Taco Bell, which shows that the drive-through queuing is proposed to be located more than 60 feet away from the adjacent residents. The importance of that will become clear in a moment. Previously, that lane was going to run along the western edge of the property, which is the bottom of the graphic in this case, immediately adjacent to the alley. Page 16 of that same document shows an aerial view of the site. Note the T formation alley, which has a portion running parallel to both Edmond and Snelling, and the proximity of residential uses across that alley parallel to Snelling. In terms of background on the site and zoning history, I think it's important to understand, and when I'm giving that, I'll also summarize the basis for the Planning Commission decision and the Hamlin Midway Coalition appeal. So a fast food Mexican restaurant was first constructed on the site in 1973. At the time, that required a conditional use permit for a fast food restaurant. That's no longer a requirement in our code. There was no, although there was no condition attached to that conditional use permit at the time, minutes from the meeting where that was issued suggest that the restaurants then operated, so it's different than their operator today, had stated that they intended to close by 11 p.m. As noted in my remarks and the comments received, that's very different than what's happening today. At some point after 1973, a drive-through was added. It may have been that the window was included at the time of construction or walk-up use. Unfortunately, our city records don't show any sort of zoning approvals. Staff has reviewed this, and we think that at minimum it would have required an electrical permit to install the order board and speaker box. It's not clear if that would have triggered a site plan approval under the code at that time. And electrical permits are only held for 7 years, so it shouldn't be expected that that would be there. In general, though, drive-throughs since that time, and we believe it was in 2004 well, I'm sorry, I'll take a step back. At some point between when this restaurant opened and at some point after 1975, the city adopted standards for drive-through uses that are generally still there today. They've been modified. And then we believe in 2004, we've been doing a code review, which is more difficult because we don't have access to all the records in the offices right now. But at some point, we believe 2004, drive-throughs were actually made their own use. So they require a separate conditional use permit. So that's actually what Border Foods was applying for in this case, is a CUP, not for the restaurant itself, but for the drive-through. There's a little bit of history preceding the current application that's on appeal as well. In 2015, Border Foods made a similar application, again, with the goal of replacing the existing building and drive-through. The Planning Commission did approve that CUP, but with a large number of conditions. Border Foods appealed that in order to appealed that approval in order to contest those conditions, which I believe they described as onerous, and ultimately withdrew the application. Border Foods came back again in 2019 for another application. At that time, zoning staff recommended denial on the basis that the proposed use, as I noted in directing your attention to the site plan, didn't meet the city's locational requirements, which require that all elements of a drive-through, the queuing lane, the order board, the speaker box, the service window, all be located more than 60 feet from any adjacent residential properties, and that was not the case with that site plan. And staff found that given that, and combined with the general late night hours of operation, that the proposed use was, inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. This year in 2020, Border Foods applied again with that modified site plan that I called your attention to that does meet the city standards. Staff did recommend approval of that application in 2020, finding generally that it met all the requirements for approval of a conditional use permit. And that approval included recommended conditions of approval limiting the drive-through hours to 2 a.m. on weeknights and to 3 a.m. on weekend nights, which is closing earlier than their present hours of operation, or at least prior to the spring. The zoning committee held a public hearing on July 16th, and the zoning committee voted 3-1 to recommend denial of the application. And the reasoning for that denial was inconsistency with the comprehensive plan, that the use would be detrimental to the pedestrian-friendly character of the immediate neighborhood of the use, and that the use would inhibit the normal and orderly development of the area for allowed uses. That all comes from our zoning code requirements for approval of any conditional use permit. It would have to be consistent with those findings. On August 7th, after a somewhat lengthy discussion, the Planning Commission voted 10-2 to actually approve the CUP, and the resolution adopted the staff recommendation, which I previously covered. I would refer the council members to the full document, which is in the record, but the Hamlin Midway Coalition appeal, which was filed on August 17th, generally stated that the Planning Commission had erred in regard to 3 required findings for a cup, stating that the proposed drive-through was inconsistent with the comprehensive plan, that the use would be detrimental to the pedestrian-friendly character of the immediate neighborhood, and that the use would inhibit the normal and orderly development of the area for allowed uses. The HMC appeal also noted correctly that all of the comments received during the zoning committee public hearing, with the exception, of course, of those from the applicant and the applicant's representative, opposed the application. And that concludes my staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the council members have.
Wow, I did not know we were going to go back to the beginning of Taco Bell times. That was an in-depth report. Thank you, Mr. Williams. I was saying that was that was like the pre-soft shell tacos years that we started out with. All right, I see Ms. Prince has a hand up, so I'm assuming there's a question there for Mr. Williams.
Yeah, Mr. Williams, of course, speaking of the beginning of time, I worked for 10 years in Ward 4 as the legislative aide, and this address was the source of much unhappiness on the part of neighbors. So I'm not surprised about the opposition. But my question is this: was there any? And you may have covered this, but I don't think I heard it. In their appeal, the Hamlin Midway Coalition did say if the appeal was denied, they would at least like conditions to be added on the hours. Did you say they're open until 3 a.m.? I thought the hours of 12 and 1 a.m. were really reasonable for a business that backs up to a residential neighborhood. So that's my question.
Council President Brendamone, Councilmember Prince. So I'm pulling up their their appeal right now from Hamlin Midway. I know that they did state that in regard to in their comments originally filed with the zoning committee during the application process, and I believe the hours were 12 and 1 or thereabouts. That would be present in the staff report packet that I called your attention to earlier. That same document has the letter from the Hamlin Midway in it.
So were those conditions, are those conditions added?
Yes, I apologize. So those conditions were requested by Hamlin Midway Coalition at the time of the zoning committee hearing. The conditions on the Planning Commission approval limit the hours to 3 a.m. and 2 a.m.
So as part of our action today, could we ask to impose a condition of the hours that the neighborhood requested?
Council President, Council Member, that is my understanding that is within your purview. If I'm incorrect, I imagine someone from the City Attorney's Office can correct that, but that is my understanding.
Thanks, Ms. Prince. Are there other questions for Mr. Williams? All right. All right. So I'm just getting reoriented here. It does seem like there's a point where I kind of hit a wall. Okay. So let's see. So here's our public hearing. It looks like we've had a significant amount of comment online. I know the attorney for the establishment has submitted comments very recently, Mr. Alton, and wanted to make sure that was brought to folks' attention. I'm sure folks have read these letters, these attachments. So just making sure you saw that late edition. So given that, I believe that since we've had this public hearing online, Ms. Jalali would move to close the public hearing. Is there discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? All right, seeing none, roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker,
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed.
Ms. Jalali.
Thank you. I might be having connection issues, so I'm just going to do my best and hope someone flags me down. Can you hear me okay, Council President?
Yep, you look good. It's your video is a little bit fuzzy, but I think you sound great.
Okay, as long as folks can hear me. Well, I really appreciate the exhaustive staff report. Also did not expect to go back through the decades of Taco Bell, but that is important historical context. And I also appreciate all the community input that's been received on this issue. I guess I'll start by saying that decisions like these can sometimes get discussed in terms of whether or not we like certain places to eat or certain types of development. And I guess I want to clarify that I see today's vote as it is, which is on the facts of a land use issue within the requirements outlined by our city code and processes. And so this judgment is based on whether or not the applicant, Border Foods, meets all 5 standards that any conditional use permit has to satisfy. Reviewing all the information and looking at the standards as they are, I do think there are 2 definite standards not met by the proposal. I'd like to just briefly discuss each one. The first is that one of the guidelines that it must meet is that the extent, location, and intensity of the use will be in substantial compliance with the St. Paul Comprehensive Plan and any applicable sub-area plans which were approved by the City Council. And as the staff report states, the 2030 St. Paul Comprehensive Plan identifies the subject property as part of both a mixed-use corridor and a neighborhood center. Land use 1.52 states a goal to prioritize the development of compact commercial areas accessible by pedestrians and transit users over commercial areas more readily accessed by automobile. And so I guess I'd just start by saying that as a proposal for a drive-through, I don't think this project generally meets the standard of prioritizing pedestrian and transit users over automobile access. And I want to also more specifically add, as HMC points out in their appeal, the drive-through is not open to cyclists, and when the lobby is closed after 10 p.m., pedestrians and cyclists are not allowed to order at the drive-through. Not only do I feel this goes against the standard in the comp plan of accessibility to pedestrians, it's also in a location just blocks off the most transit-rich intersection, possibly in the entire state of Minnesota, Snelling and University, where such types of pedestrian accessibility and transit usage have most opportunity to be prioritized. And that's the bus rapid transit up and down Snelling. That's the multiple bus routes that run along that intersection. That's the light rail right at the heart of the stadium super block area. So the other piece to this is that in terms of compact commercial development, the floor area ratio required for this site is 0.5, and the proposal would only have a FAR of 0.11. This is not the compact commercial development that the comp plan calls for. It's not the standard by either the 2030 or the 2041. And the St. Paul comp plan also has a stated goal to encourage changes to the design of existing auto-oriented buildings and areas with elements of traditional urban form to minimize impacts on the pedestrian realm. And I just want to connect this to the conversation ongoing in cities across America about parking minimums. We talk about parking minimums, but we also should note that as a city, we have parking maximums also. Parking maximums are just so high that they almost never come up. But in this case, rather than changing an existing auto-oriented building to a more traditional urban form, this proposal wants to include parking that would exceed our parking maximum. So compact commercial development, prioritizing transit and pedestrian use, and then changing the design of auto-oriented buildings to minimize impacts on the pedestrian realm are all called for in the comp plan. I don't feel they're met by the proposal. And then the second finding, so that's all under the first finding. The second one that I don't think is met, or guideline I should call, is that the use will not be detrimental to the existing character of the development in the immediate neighborhood or endanger the public health, safety, and general welfare. And as Hamlin Midway Coalition points out, the Snelling Station Area Plan in Figure 1.8 specifically states drive-through facilities such as those found at the McDonald's, the American Bank, do not enhance the pedestrian nature of the station area. I additionally would just lift up its a proposal for a drive-through off of a location that is actually a state highway and then would open into residential neighborhoods immediately nearby that already experience a range of challenges due to being in an area that frequently experiences car traffic at speeds that we're not able to regulate under our new 20 is plenty and other city ordinance processes because of the actual road that is a major part of the site. So in addition to those two findings that form the basis for my judgment, the last thing I'll say is I feel it's important to state more broadly individual land use decisions like this one set the stage for how we foster development that is equitable, accessible, environmentally just, and sustainable. And I don't think the proposal addresses all the standards that we have to meet as a city to receive a cup. But more broadly, I also just think it's important that we remember to uphold the vision and promise of the 2040 plan and our community's rightful demands for that kind of development, including and especially in Midway, where we have to balance concerns about rising displacement with sustainability and equity goals. Today's decision does not remove the existence of the current Taco Bell site, of course, but granting a cup against the findings doesn't just go against the required standards that it has to be satisfied. I do think it also is against that broader vision as we continue to shape our city together. So for all these reasons, I'm moving to support the Hamlin-Midway Coalition's appeal and deny the conditional use permit. So that would be my motion, and I welcome my colleagues' thoughts as well.
So I see Ms. Prince has her hand up.
Yeah, yes. Thank you, Councilmember Jalali. I totally support the motion. I think it's very sound. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Other thoughts on this item? All right. So there is a motion from Ms. Jalali. Let's go with the roll call.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The motion of intent is the appeal is granted. Item number 28, resolution public hearing 20-176, approving the petition of Rick Kavanaugh on behalf of SCOZ Waterford Bay LLC to vacate a portion of Western Avenue in Stinson, Brown, and Ramsey's addition.
All right, and this public hearing has been held online, and comments are attached to Legistar. With that being so, Ms. Nicker moves to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? All right, roll call.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang.
Aye.
Jalali.
Aye.
Baker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 29, resolution public hearing 20-185, approving an amendment to the spending and financing budget for the Ford Site Redevelopment Capital Project to reflect a grant from the Capital Region Watershed District and acceptance of the CRWD grant for stormwater management and enhancements, including the Hidden Falls Headwater Connection.
All right. So on this item, there is a staff report. And is it Melanie who's here or McMahon who's here to present?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome, Ms. McMahon.
Thank you. And would I be able to share my screen?
Yep. Let me switch you to presenter status.
Great. Thank you.
And you should be good to go.
Great. Is that showing up for folks? Hopefully.
Yep, it looks good. Yep.
Okay, great, wonderful. Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate you hanging on for a staff report after what I know has been a very long meeting, so I appreciate your time. But I'm excited to be here to talk tonight and give just a little bit of background. I'll try and be brief on this resolution and the amendment to the Ford Site Redevelopment Capital Project Budget. This resolution essentially takes what you see as the picture on the left, which is the current state of the falls in Hidden Falls Regional Park, and instead allows for what you see on the right, which is the rendering of what the connection under Mississippi River Boulevard would look like, with improved stormwater management, a daylighting of the creek, and a new off-street bike and pedestrian connection under Mississippi River Boulevard. This resolution does two things. It accepts the Capital Region Watershed District grant, and I did just want to take a moment to publicly thank the Cap Region Watershed for this grant. They've been incredibly supportive and a great partner to work with on stormwater throughout the Watershed District, but on this site in particular. So a big thank you to them for a substantial grant of approximately $1.7 million. And then also this amends the Ford Site Redevelopment Project budget. The grant itself has sort of two different parts to it. The first is a $795,000, and that's used for those stormwater enhancements that you see listed there. And the second part is this $926,000 that makes this connection from the regional park to the community a reality. The full budget analysis is attached to the council agenda, so I won't go through that, but this is the sources and uses specifically for this connection from Hidden Falls to the Highland Bridge site. As you can see there, the total costs are approximately $1.9 million, and of those costs for the project, nearly $1 million of it will be coming from this Capital Region Watershed District grant. There's also existing legacy parks funding that's already allocated for Hidden Falls that will be used for this connection to Hidden Falls. There's existing parkland dedication balances being used, and those, as you know, are restricted in their use to a certain proximity from where they're collected. This project's actually eligible for those funds because of its location. The rest you're familiar with: CIB funds, general fund transfer, and also leveraging some TIF funds from the site for the construction. And I did just want to sort of note here as a little preview that there will be an upcoming HRA council item that will formally include those TIP funds and then expand the project area also to include this crossing site adjacent to the Highland Bridge site. And I will turn it over just for a few minutes to Wes Saunders Pierce, the Water Resource Coordinator, and he, along with a lot of staff in the city, have done great work in order to get this grant and really make the project a reality. So Wes, do you want to go through this?
Absolutely. Thank you, Melanie, and good evening, council members. Over the next two slides, I'll briefly cover the context for how and why this enhanced crossing opportunity emerged. The aspiration for an enhanced connection between the regional park and the Ford site is shown on the left in the area circled in red. And you can see that on Ryan's development rendering. The relationship of the Ford site to the Mississippi River and the importance of the corridor and connection was a clear part of the city's Great River Passage Plan from 2013. The Great River Passage Plan illustration on the left shows that vision, which calls for a bridge to aid the connection. That vision directly informed the 2017 Ford Site Public Realm Plan, which specifically states as part of its vision to recreate the Hidden Falls headwaters and reconnect the future neighborhood to the river by means of an open water flow path. Today, the development program, which you see on the figure in front of you, shows the water feature corridor, but the Mississippi River Boulevard enhanced crossing was off-site and out of scope. Next slide. This close-up view shows what we are now positioned to accomplish. And I'll explain the pieces in a moment, but I first wanted to quickly share how the city realized this opportunity because I think it's a fantastic partnership. Originally, Ryan planned to outlet the central water feature to an existing city storm pipe next to the park known as Park C. However, about 6 months ago, late in the design process, Ryan discovered some engineering challenges. And they said, well, you know, we're going to have to construct a new outlet pipe and we're going to have to cut that through Mississippi River Boulevard, forcing excavation and an off-site infrastructure improvement. So based on this new information, staff approached Ryan to capitalize on really what I would say is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to achieve this overall planning vision. So the idea was to leverage the new need to excavate Mississippi River Boulevard which would really be cost prohibitive in the future for a different project or for a different improvement. So we did a very rapid feasibility study, and the concept shown on the screen was selected as the preferred alternative to achieving the vision. And as Melanie had mentioned, it features a bridge underneath Mississippi River Boulevard that in fact is about 90 feet long to get all the way under the road and the existing trails. It also allows for daylighting the last remaining pipe section of flow, creating a continuous open channel connecting the Ford site to the regional park and ultimately the Mississippi River. And along this open channel, there's a grade separated trail with terraces strategically placed on either side of the bridge that safely delivers pedestrians and bicyclists across Mississippi River Boulevard to the regional park and the existing trail. So significant environmental benefits, significant benefits to mobility, and really, I think, a win-win for the city, our community, and the development partner. Melanie?
Thank you, Wes. And I'll just conclude by saying that the Parks Commission has reviewed this. There's an attached to the agenda resolution in support of the project, and CIB has reviewed in support of as well. And with that, I am open to questions if anybody has any.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is it's really exciting. It's a really cool project. It's nice to hear Mr. Saunders Pierce so excited. I can tell it's like, woohoo, water project. And that's actually something that's going to connect the site to the river. A lot of times the river road almost feels like a barrier to the Mississippi. So this connection is just lovely. So I agree. It's a win on all counts, and it's an exciting presentation. I can't wait to see it. I see Ms. Prince has a hand up, and I'm just looking for other folks that may have comments on this item. So Ms. Prince.
Melanie and Wes, it's really beautiful, and I'm very supportive. My only question is, in the budget, in terms of the city money, is that all funding? I know you said the parks, the parkland dedication money was money that we can specifically spend in that adjacent area. And I just wondered if you could fill me in on where the rest of the money comes from, or whether it was already budgeted.
Sure, I can. And Mike Solomon's also on the line to answer questions, so I might have him help me out a little bit with some of the budget items with it. But yeah, so the existing legacy parks funding, like I said, that's money that had already been obtained and was allocated for Hidden Falls. And so it's going to be used on this connection to Hidden Falls. The parkland dedication is existing funds within that parkland dedication balance to be used within this region. The CIB bonds and the general fund transfer, Mike can speak a little bit more to. Those are specific to both bike and pedestrian funds, existing money that is in those. And part of it was looking at this new off-street connection, both bike and pedestrian, to connect a community and residents and neighborhood to one of the major bikeways and regional parks in the community. And so these are sources that Public Works looked at and thought were really applicable and fit those uses. And then the TIF would be generated from the site. Mike, was there anything you wanted to add for that?
No, Council President Bremo and council members, I think Melanie hit the nail on the head. Those are all the sources.
So the general fund money is, or the CIB and general fund money is the general fund from our bike fund, the same fund that we're using for Ide Mill?
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Prince, this is from the bike fund. That general fund transfer is from the bike fund for that bike connection. I am not 100% positive on the Ide Mill connection at all, so I will turn it to Mr. Solomon for that.
Yeah, thank you, Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Prince. I believe it's the same program, but I think this was Public Works 2020 dollars. I think that might have been a 2019 use, but we can double check that and get back to you.
Well, I think there's still enough in that fund to allow for that. I just wanted to see if it was from that fund. And then the CIB funding is Public Works funding that they had left over, or
yeah, so Council President Council President Bremo and Councilmember Prince. So both of those are existing programs in Public Works. And as Melanie identified, these were the program choices that Public Works recommended for this year for those funds. So they were available 2020 budget dollars, and this was their proposed use.
Thank you for that. I love the project, and I appreciate that level of detail. So thank you.
I see Ms. Naker has a hand up. Mr. Tolbert, I saw Mr. Tao earlier, but okay, Mr. Tao, and then Ms. Naker, and then Mr. Tolbert.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, you know, along the water, what type of vegetation, what type of material will be used? And thank you, Melanie and Wes, for working on this project. I'm just curious about what do we have in place before the water goes into the stream? Are we creating some sort of vegetation to capture some of the contamination and things like that?
Council President Bremno and Councilmember Tao, I will let maybe Wes talk a little bit more about the stormwater end of that, but I do know that some preliminary designs were done simply to see if it was a feasible option to make this connection and to see what sort of design would be needed. But those final design elements are what is being looked at right now and being designed right now. Mr. Saunders-Pierce, I don't know if anything to add on the stormwater end.
Yes, thank you. And I would just briefly add that all of the storm water from the site is collected and treated before it's released into the central water feature and any of the open channel elements. So there's no need for vegetation as a tool to reduce contamination. However, as Melanie said, we are looking more deeply into the design, and the aesthetic will reflect a lot of the same character that will be incorporated into the Ford site design. So it will really have a very continuous and consistent look along the edges as it extends from the Ford site into the public realm and crossing under Mississippi River Boulevard. And then long term, you know, the 5, 10, 15-year outlook, our Parks Department has completed a Hidden Falls master plan in 2019, and that will be looking at future improvements to the existing creek more downstream towards the river.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tao. Ms. Naker, and then Mr. Tolbert. Ms. Prince, is your hand still up, or is it fresh? All right.
Thanks, Council President. I'm very much in support of the project. I think it's a really cool idea. I'm also concerned about the financing. We just finished a budget conversation where we were talking about how everything is a trade-off. And so I'm wondering, to Councilmember Prince's questions, we know we have this $500,000 for bike ped work every year. We've dedicated about 40% of that to Ide Mill for the next decade. Now it looks like this is another $100,000 out of that pool. So I guess I'm just wondering, from Public Works' standpoint, what is the trade-off here? What can we not do that we were intending to do in 2020 if we use this $100,000 here?
Council President Bremmo and Councilmember Naker, and that's something I had asked initially too. Public Works really went in and tried to look at both Public Works and Parks, said this is a phenomenal project and this is an opportunity that we simply won't have again. And particularly with the grant dollars and with such little left for the city to fill the gap to make it a go on those bike and ped connections and stormwater management. So they looked at what funds were applicable, and looking at the bike funds, these were available sources remaining for this year. And there were ones that this was a shovel-ready project to get going. And so this wasn't taking away from another project because the money hadn't been identified for another project.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Naker. And I will. Are there other questions for staff? I know Mr. Tolbert has his hand up, but just looking to see if there's other questions. All right, then why don't we move on to Mr. Tolbert?
Yeah, I want to thank Ms. McMahon and Mr. Saunders-Pierce and Mr. Solomon for all their work on this, and also thank the Cap Region Watershed District. They are obviously the big driver on making this possible, as well as our parks and public works and the people on this call and Ryan Companies, who all work together to make this once in a generation, or as Wes said, once in a lifetime connection that's just going to be fantastic. Not only are we daylighting the Hidden Falls stream, but we are going to be connecting the Highland Bridge to Hidden Falls and to the Mississippi River. And that's super exciting. Hidden Falls, I have said recently, I was just exploring there the other day, it's misnamed now because people have found it. It is a very activated park, and it's really fun to go down there and watch families barbecuing, fishing, and it's large enough where people can social distance and hike and explore woods. And back when we weren't having a pandemic, there were shows and concerts down there, and it's really a great park. And to be able to connect that park, which is below the bluff, with the above the bluff and the Highland Bridge new neighborhood and the rest of the community is going to be fantastic. And just the picture of that under connection with the daylighted stream that we haven't had, and the water connection on the Highland Bridge is just super exciting. So thank you to the Cap Region Watershed District. Thank you to all the city staff who spent a lot of hours and creativity on this. And thank you to Ryan Companies. This is a really exciting development, and I look forward to seeing it as it gets built out. So with that, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing and approve.
All right, so there's a motion to close the public hearing and approve. I think we actually closed the public hearing. Let's, as I said, I've somehow hit a wall, so I don't know. But I think that we did close the public hearing, so why don't we go, Mr. Tolbert moves approval. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince? Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. You had not closed it before. Item number 30, resolution public hearing 20-186, amending the city's operating budget to reflect the final details resulting from the issuance of the Ford redevelopment site special storm sewer charge and subordinate sewer system revenue bond series 2020E.
And Mr. Tolbert, would you like a staff report on this item?
No staff report, but I know Mr. Solomon's here if there's those questions.
All right, are there questions for Mr. Solomon? Seeing none, Mr. Tolbert will move to close the public hearing and approve. Roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 31, resolution public hearing 20-191, amending the CDBG general ledger budget to reflect the actual 2020 grant award of $6,892,568, amending the CDBG project budget to include 2020 CDBG spending plan of $7,400,000 and allocating the 2019 CDBG carryover spending to various projects.
And this is a public hearing. It's been held online. Do folks have questions for staff on this item? All right, seeing none, Ms. Naker would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 32, resolution public hearing 20-192, amending the home general ledger budget to reflect the actual 2020 grant award of $1,895,972, program income reported to HUD of $1,100,758, and amending home project budgets to include the 2020 spending plan.
All right. Are there questions for staff from council members? All right. Seeing none, Mr. Tolbert moves to close the public hearing and approve. Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Excuse me. Item number 33. Resolution Public Hearing 20-88, ratifying the assessment for the 2019 Street Maintenance Service Program Millen Overlay Downtown Streets.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see. This is a public hearing. It's been taken online.
Just a reminder, Council President, this is one of the first items that will be continued to May 5th.
May 5th. Yep, May 5th. All right. So the motion on this item is to continue the matter to May 5th from Ms. Prince. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to May 5th of 2021. Item 34, Resolution Public Hearing 20-89, ratifying the assessment for the 2019 Street Maintenance Service Program Millen Overlay, St. Clair Avenue from Fairview to Snelling. This is also an item that will be continued.
Ms. Yang moves to continue this matter to May 5th. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to May 5th. Item 35, Resolution Public Hearing 20-90, ratifying the assessment for the 2019 Street Maintenance Service Program Millen Overlay, Cleveland Avenue from Yorkshire to Mississippi Boulevard. And this is also to be continued.
And Mr. Chow moves to continue the matter to May 5th. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to May 5th. Item 36, Resolution Public Hearing 20-91, ratifying the assessment for the 2019 Street Maintenance Service Program Millen Overlay, Pascal Street from University to St. Anthony. This is also to be continued.
Ms. Jalali continues the matter to May 5th. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brennan.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to May 5th, 2021. Item 37, Resolution Public Hearing 20-92, ratifying the assessment for the 2019 Street Maintenance Service Program Millen Overlay, Pryor Avenue from Summit to I-94, also to be continued.
This item will be laid over to May 5th, continued to May 5th rather, moved by Mr. Let's see, was that item 39?
37.
Oops, 37. Moved by Mr. Tao. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to May 5th. Item 38, Resolution Public Hearing 20-38, ratifying the assessment for replacement of sanitary sewer services within the right-of-way as part of the Fairview Avenue paving and lighting project. And this item can be voted on.
All right. So, Ms. This has been a public hearing online. Ms. Jalali would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince,
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang,
Aye.
Jalali,
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmon.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 39, resolution public hearing 20-46, ratifying the assessment for a sanitary sewer connection at 1199 Winthrop Street South.
All right, and this is a public hearing. It was held online, and therefore Ms. Prince would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 40, resolution public hearing 20-47, ratifying the assessment for a sanitary sewer connection at 2161 Hadley Street.
This item has been, public hearing's been held online, and therefore Ms. Prince would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 41, resolution public hearing 20-48, ratifying the assessment for advanced sewer connection charges by properties connecting to a sanitary sewer line.
This was public hearing was held online. Mr. Tolbert would move to close the public hearing and approve. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item 42, resolution public hearing 20-60, ratifying the assessment for the 2019 street maintenance service program, seal coating street and/or alley. And this item is to be continued to May 5th.
All right, so I would move to this item like held over till May 5th, or Ms. Moore, did you say the matter to anyways, I make that motion.
Okay.
Roll call.
To be continued to May 5th.
Continue to May 5th, roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to May 5th of 2021. For the following items, no objections to the legislative hearing officer's recommendations were received, and therefore she recommends adoption. Item 43, RLH VO 20-39, 125 Como Avenue. Item 44, RLH TA 20-483, 756 Fuller Avenue. Item 47, RLH TA 20-458, 625 Hawthorne Avenue East. Item 48, RLH TA 20-553, 679 Hoyt Avenue West. Item 49, RLH VBR 20-59, 847 Hudson Road. Item 52, RLH TA 20-482, 1286 Minnehaha Avenue East. Item 53, RLH TA 20-554, 1399 Minnehaha Avenue West. Item 54, RLH BO 20-36, 1017 Rainy Avenue. Item 56, RLH FCO 20-119, 1676 7th Street East. Item 57, RLH AR 20-116, and that's ratifying assessments for collection of vacant building registration. Item 58, RLH AR 20-117, assessments for collection of fire certificate of occupancy. Item 59, RLH AR 20-118, and this was assessments for excessive use of inspection or abatement. And the motion for all of those would be to adopt.
So moved by Councilmember Prince. Is there discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao,
Aye.
Tolbert,
Yes.
Yang. Aye. Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are closed and the resolutions are adopted. For the following item, no objection to the legislative hearing officer's amended recommendation was received, and therefore she recommends amendment and adoption of item 51, RLH BO 20-40, 876 Lawson Avenue East. Again, amend and adopt.
So moved by Ms. Yang. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang. Aye. Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted as amended. For the following items, the legislative hearing officers recommends continuing the public hearings to the dates listed. Item 46, RLH TA 20-525, 171 Granite to continue to October 14th. Item 55, RLH VBR 20-56, 1670 7th Street East, continue to September 23rd. And item 45, RLH TA 20-531, appealed special tax assess, 1941 Fremont Avenue, continue to January 6th. So again, the motion is to continue the public hearings to the dates I just mentioned.
So moved by Mr. Tao. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, roll call.
Prince.
Aye.
Tao.
Aye.
Tolbert.
Yes.
Yang. Aye. Jalali.
Aye.
Naker.
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen.
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearings are continued to their respective dates. And for the last item, the legislative hearing officer's recommendation is contested and additional testimony from the appellant is in the record. And I believe there's also a staff report for item number 50, RLH SAO 20-18, 913 Johnson Parkway.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mormond.
Council President, council members, I will try to make good use of your time and be quick. What we're looking at is a summary abatement order, so summary nuisance abatement order to clean up the property at 913 Johnson Parkway. The orders were issued on August 7th for 1 week for compliance to clean up the yard. What I would like to do is share my screen with you to show you the photographs, just a few here so you get a sense of what the cleanup is. We have cinder block and windows there. We have also some various construction debris and various scrap metal. A sort of a structure with plastic tarping hanging over it, and there's another angle on this which you can see it's open and very haphazard put together. And finally, there's a couple of vehicles that are parked where they shouldn't be. So taking that together, there was 1 week. I met with the owner of the property, and he indicated that his son brought these items to his property and that he was having trouble removing them on his own. I contacted the house calls program to see if they could provide assistance. They could if the items were on the interior of the house, but this is on the exterior of the house, and it was pretty significant. What I'm recommending to the council is that you grant an extension to him to September 18th to remove items that he had already had bagged up and ready to go, and then to October 30th to remove the balance of the items from the yard. in the testimony that he submitted today around noon, which is attached to your record, and you can look at, he indicated he would like an extension to take him into springtime after the thaw, thinking that it would be easier for him to deal with it at that point in time, and also citing that he's getting older and has disability concerns. This is a pretty significant nuisance situation in this yard, and although it wasn't caused by this gentleman, it is a family kind of a concern where there should be another kind of an effort happening to address it. I think that granting an extension from the original deadline of August 14th to October 30th is generous, and that's the recommendation I have in front of you. Like I say, his statement is in your record, and you could look at it differently and want to give him additional time to clean up the rest of the yard.
All right. Are there any questions from Ms. Mormond? All right. Thank you, Ms. Mormond. Ms. Yang.
Thank you, Marcia, for your recommendation and work on this property. I did take a look at the pictures, and as y'all can see, it's not a small mess at all. It is a lot to clean up, but I do feel that the 8 weeks that is recommended is a reasonable amount of time to do this, and is a good amount of time to be able to hold the resident accountable to cleaning this up too. I think these things are visible in our neighborhoods, and we want to make sure that we keep our neighborhoods beautiful and vibrant. And I'm hoping that in the amount of time that we're giving the resident that they can achieve this. So hopefully you all will join me in supporting the recommendation.
All right. So Ms. Yang was the recommendation of the legislative hearing officer on this item. Any discussion on that motion? All right. Seeing none. A roll call.
Prince?
Aye.
Tao?
Aye.
Tolbert?
Yes.
Yang?
Aye.
Jalali?
Aye.
Naker?
Aye.
Council President Brenmoen?
Aye.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. That is the end of our agenda.
All right. So that brings us to the end of our agenda. If there's nothing else to come before us tonight, we are adjourned. Thank you.